What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are having a great afternoon, morning, evening, whenever you're listening to this episode. I just wanted to do a quick little intro on this one. Had some tech issues, so you're going to notice about an hour and some change into the episode. Nate's video goes out, and then about an hour and 40 into it, mine goes out. I tried to replace it with some fitting pictures. But I just wanted to say, please listen to the whole episode. This is one of my favorite podcasts that I've shot in a long time. Extremely intelligent guy. Met him for the first time doing this podcast. Talked bodybuilding, real estate, the economy, the housing market, the Trump assassination. That's why it took a little bit for this podcast to come out. But like I said, please take the time, listen to the whole thing. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Big thank you to Nate for coming on the podcast. I'd love to have you on again, buddy. Sorry about the tech issues, but amazing conversation, and I cannot wait for all of you guys to hear it. Thanks.
2, 1. It is good to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming by and doing this.
Absolutely.
Congrats on your most recent prep, by the way.
Yeah.
You look like I think I told you this over Instagram. You look like a fucking superhero, dude.
No, I appreciate that. No, I this was probably my best prep and pest package that we brought. And it was almost 18 weeks, maybe 20 weeks.
Jesus.
That we prepped because we did the New Mexico show and then had the intention of doing nationals about 5-6 weeks later.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
How long have you been bodybuilding for?
So my first show was 2019. And I did men's physique. I did the New Mexico show, actually.
Okay.
And so I took first in, I think, novice. And then I think I took third in the open. But I was hooked after that.
That's crazy.
yeah.
Was it, what organization was it?
It was NPC.
NPC?
I started in
okay.
NPC, yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So
Good for you, man. That is, what made you want to get started in bodybuilding?
So I originally was in cage fighting. So I moved out here. Yeah. So I had 5 cage fights. And actually came out to New Mexico for college. My parents are still over in California. And so, because originally, my dad's military, he and my mom went to UNM. My grandparents actually went to UNM too. They left when I was about a year old because they had me right out of college. And then we moved all over the place because of military. And then I went back to Mexico because they gave me in-state tuition because my dad was military and went to the RTC
nice.
program. So came back here, but I also wanted to get into like MMA. Because I think in middle school, I had watched. Do you watch like UFC? And
Yeah,
all that?
a little bit here and there. Yeah.
So who was it? It was Rampage Jackson at that time, and I was flipping through the television, and UFC popped up, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. Yeah. So I got into jiu-jitsu, and then was like, okay, I'm gonna go to UNM, go to Albuquerque, and I'm gonna cage fight. Came here, cage fought.
Did you know that Albuquerque was like
the hub? Yeah,
the hub for it. Did you know about
Greg
that?
Jackson's. Yeah. So I was familiar that a lot of people were here. Training in like the UFC, or like the top people were training out of Albuquerque, and then the elevation, reading about that and all that stuff. So came here and then started training MMA, had the 5 cage fights, and then on the 5th cage fight, I broke my nose in one of them, had to go get stitches in another one, and then so like 3 hospital visits. And at that point, I was like, okay, I don't know if this is worth it. And then my buddy got his first pro contract, and it was $1,000 for 3 fights.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. And so I was like, I just don't think, the hospital bills are more than that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I need to figure out something. And so at that time, I had just gotten into the car industry. And I was like just focusing on my career, making money. And I was like, I miss that like competitive aspect. And one of the sales guys that I was training at the time, he was a bodybuilder. And he's like, have you ever thought about like just lifting? Because you're still going to the gym, like maybe put a goal in front of it. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I'll try like a show. And then started the prep, got a local coach, and then did the show. And then, that's how I got into bodybuilding.
Good for you, man. Yeah, that's, especially if you're going to choose between MMA and bodybuilding, you need to choose something that you genuinely like will love no matter what. Because there are such low return investments, especially in the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a lot of return up front, not a lot of like the magic claw is not going to come down and grab you and bring you to stardom. It's just years.
I picked the worst 2 sports when it comes to like any type of reward or like professional like payout.
Well, the people that love them, they don't do it for all that. You know what I mean? That's why those sports are still alive. It's certainly not because of the money in the beginning. It's because people just love it so much. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the amazing people over at Chop Chili Company. Guys, they are the original sponsor of this podcast, and I could not be happier to continue to be working with these guys. I get it. It's New Mexico. Everyone loves red, green, both. But this genuinely is my favorite brand of chili here in the state of New Mexico, and I love being able to partner up with these guys. They are absolutely phenomenal. Zane and the rest of the team at Chop Chili do an amazing job running that company, and they make an absolutely phenomenal product. And right now, they are running a very special promotional on their Instagram. Go check them out on Instagram. Go give them a follow. And as they post pictures with the hashtag Where's My Chili Challenge, if you can guess where in New Mexico that picture was taken, you can win not only free red or green chili, but also a free custom t-shirt directly from the company themselves. Again, go check them out on Instagram, give them a follow, check out their hashtag Where's My Chili Challenge. Win yourself some free chili, win yourself some free shirts. They are also available in Smith's, Albertsons, Sprouts, and a ton of other grocery stores in the state of New Mexico, as well as El Paso, and they are expanding out to West Texas. Again, thank you so much to Zane and the rest of his amazing team over at Chop Chili. Back to the episode. Like, I certainly not at the level that you're doing it, but I did one natural physique show.
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, one. And my buddy who coached me through it, he loved it. I've loved bodybuilding, like, as a sport, like, as a purveyor, just watching it. And then I loved being in prep, but then getting to the show day, I was like, this is fucking, what is going on here?
Yeah.
It was, like, also the organization wasn't great, and it was super unorganized or whatever.
Gotcha.
Like, I remember we were there in the morning. They held it at the chemo theater.
Okay,
And so the male competitors, female competitors were all, like, in, like, the, like, below the stage where all the different rooms are at, and they bring us all in the hallway, and they're like, okay, because they hadn't given us a timeline, like, at all for this. And this is one of the only things I remember from that show was they were like, hey, so men's divisions, you guys are going to go in the morning, and then women's will start around 2 p.m. And then just like this horde of dehydrated women just died. Like, their faces just
I'm sure.
shrunk. And I was like, wow, well, that sucks for them. But
Yeah.
but like, yeah, by 2 p.m. I'm gonna be eating Dion's pizza and taking a nap because
Yeah.
fuck this. But it's a very interesting sport, and how do I put this? Like, because there's so many stigmas surrounding it, especially with like steroids and with like insulin abuse, stuff like that. And then I'm glad that the national conversation is starting to change around TRT in general.
Yeah,
like it's becoming a lot more accepted. Like, hey, if you're even if you're a healthy guy, go get your blood work done.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Like, I got back from a deployment, and then all the pandemic nonsense started happening.
Right.
And I got a certain medication, let's put it that way, during that time because the Army forced me to. And about 6 months afterwards, I was like, hey, I'm not feeling that great. When I got my blood work done, turns out I've got the fucking testosterone of a 75-year-old man. Yeah, it dropped down to like 175 or some shit.
Okay.
Something like that. So I'm dealing with a lot with the VA. But how often are you like, because the name of the game for bodybuilding, especially in the beginning, is longevity. You know what I mean? So that's not only just with anything like that, but just like your training, your dieting, your recovery. Like, I feel like recovery is something in the conversation that's not really talked about a lot.
Right.
So are you regularly getting like blood work done? Are you going to dietitians? Are you going to like physical therapists? Like,
Yeah.
because the amount of punishment you're putting on your body over and over and over, I mean, that's not, for a normal human being, it's not sustainable.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
What are you doing to prioritize longevity?
So that's interesting you bring that up, because when I first got into bodybuilding, I had that local coach. So like just getting into the space, you don't really know anything. And then even back in like college, the fraternity I was a part of, it was all ex-athletes. So like I had run my first cycle in college.
Yeah.
Probably not the best like time to do it. But that was it's terrible, but like, the vials weren't like labeled. It was just like, but everyone else was doing it, and so did that.
I laugh. I only laugh because there was and my doctors know this, but there was a moment in time where I was very angry at the VA, and I had I had a secondary option to get medication.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And the vial that I had, it was a picture of an angry bear.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? Not for nothing. I had a couple testing kits, and I dropped a couple in each of the testing kits, and it was like the darker the fluid, the better.
Gotcha.
And then it came back as like black as my dip spit, and I was like, yes.
Okay.
These are the results we need.
Yeah.
So I just because all my buddies are like medically inclined, like they're all like EMTs, firefighters, paramedics, that kind of stuff, medics in the military. And when I sent the picture of the thing to our group chat, they're like, "Yeah, you're gonna die, dude."
Yeah.
But
no,
anyway.
I even remember. Luckily, our stuff wasn't that, but I knew people that were home brewing stuff too.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's crazy. But even though I did the unmarked vial, so did the first show, and that's where I started like understanding, like, okay, this could affect me like long term. I was like, I gotta get smarter about this. So at that point, I got a professional coach. So I joined Underground Athletes, and started getting an actual plan and gear protocol from my coach. And started getting blood work, or at least like basic blood work.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the amazing people over at High Desert Relief, a premier herbal destination right here in the state of New Mexico. They have extremely well-trained and knowledgeable staff that are more than happy to help you find what you're looking for or try something that you maybe have never thought of before. They have 2 locations right here in Albuquerque and a 3rd in Santa Fe. All 3 will be listed in the description of this episode below. All 3 locations offering legendary products at absolutely legendary prices, including this awesome merch that they were so kind enough to give me. They can be found at all 3 of the locations. Again, big thank you to all the people over at HDR. Back to the episode.
Before we move on from that, when you say basic blood work, people have no idea like what's even on a blood panel.
Gotcha.
What levels, what tests were getting ran on you, and you say just basic blood work?
So I would do like just I think it's like called a male panel is what I do. So it'd have your like testosterone. It also has all your liver levels. It also has like your your free testosterone too. But when I got that blood work though, I was giving it to my local coach who probably had no credentials. Other than he had seen, his own blood work or he'd done his YouTube research. And so, he would give me advice.
More plates, more dates, and was like, all right, this is what this means.
I know what, yeah, exactly. And so that's who, was originally looking at my blood work. And it was like, which was, not the best. And so, but then I moved up to the professional coach because I was like, I need to get smarter about this. Let's get someone that's actually educated or has IFBB pros. And so I moved over to Underground Athletes. And then I went out to the Chicago Pro. That was the next show I did with him. Took first in my class, and that was the first time I got nationally qualified. But it was during COVID, so it was a very weird show. Where
were you wearing masks on stage and shit like that?
No. Luckily they didn't make us wear masks, but we didn't have to do backstage too, which was weird. But the audience, they had every chair, individual chairs, like 5 feet from each other. And so it was just like the entire stadium looked full, but everyone was 5 feet. So it was just an interesting show.
Yeah.
But after that show, it was a cool opportunity because I actually got a lift with Raymond Edmonds, who was 2019's Mr. Olympia, and George, King George is his Instagram name. He's another big IFBB pro in the men's physiques space. And so I did a photo shoot with them because they were a part of Underground Athletes.
Nice.
And so I was like, oh, I'm sold. I want to do this now. I'm committed to bodybuilding. So I messaged my coach. I'm like, I'm going to renew for the year, pay for the year up front. And then a month later, what's his name? It's not Nick Walker. There's Nick Trigilli was talking about on his podcast. He's like, oh, this coach just came out with a bunch of sexual accusations, touching athletes and stuff. And so he's in Chicago. So I'd never met him in person. It was all virtual. And I was like, all right, well, I don't want to be associated with that. So I told him,
I feel left out. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was just like, I can see the direction this is going. Yeah. And then he had Brandon Hendrickson, which was the 3-time Mr. Olympia for men's physique, on his team too. He bounced as soon as that kind of he
shit.
bounced about a month before that. And then another guy that I know, Brady, who's another IFBB pro, he had bounced too. And I was like, something's going on. And then the allegations came out. I was like, all right, I don't want to be associated with this. So I told him, I was like, keep the money and like, I'm out.
Well, because so much of your, just to say entertainment career, because it applies to bodybuilding, film, stand-up, music, is your social media presence. And the moment that you are linked to a predator of, not even an actual predator, let's just say an accused predator at any time, you're fucked.
Yeah. No,
Immediately you're fucked. Have you, I'm sure you've seen him, that guy on Instagram, I don't know his real name, but it's like Goob something. The guy who exposes like predators on Instagram.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Him, like, he just goes on a fucking tirade on both, like, but it's regular people, a lot of them are athletes, mostly in the bodybuilding space, but that's what he trains people in. And he calls somebody out. I think he's close to like 1 million followers now. He calls somebody out, and you go to their page. As long as that post has been made for at least 20 minutes, it's their page is like deactivated. Comments are turned off. So, yeah, all that stuff comes out one way or another.
No, yeah. Oh, and I think it ended up coming like that. It was true that some of the allegations were true. So I left him, and I was like, all right, I'm going to get a new coach. And I looked into the same coach that both those athletes that had left switched to, and then who's Neil Hill. And he had Flex Lewis, and he had like
shit.
Yeah. So he had some good like people underneath him that he had been training, and I was like, all right, this guy's legit. So I'll reach out to him. He picked me up as a client. He's like, go get your blood work done. So I go get my blood work done, and I send it to him, and he's like, send me the cycle that your old coach had you on. Send it to him. He's like, what was this guy doing? Luckily, I mean, he's like, how long have you been running it for? I was like, 7 months, that like particular cycle. And he's like, okay, well, we're going to PCT you. We're going to take you fully off. We're going to not take anything for, I think it was like 6 months of a PCT. And then we're going to get your blood work done again.
So let's, if you don't mind, I want to get real dorky about this, because there's not a lot of people that actually know what they're talking about when it comes to this, or even have the conversation.
Yeah.
Not that I can to like a huge extent, but like, again, with how flippant a lot of this has become, and especially like on TikTok, like for the longest time, maybe a good year, I'm just seeing a bunch of people between the ages of like 18 and 23, 24 that are just like, yeah, I just started with Tren and I love it. It's like, no, bitch. Like that is a bull medicine.
Yeah.
Like that shit will kill you.
No. Yeah.
So, okay. So when he looks at your blood work, he sees the numbers are out of whack. And thankfully, what it sounds like to me is just the way your body is made, like your actual like biology. It appears to how well you take care of yourself, your genetics, that you can maybe, your body could have afforded taking some less than quality stuff and bounce back from it.
Right.
From what it sounds, and you're very lucky in that regard.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, I mean, they can take even some of the best stuff, but just because their body doesn't like it, it's not biologically built to sustain, not even super therapeutic levels, but just a foreign source.
Right.
You know, they get bad acne, they lose their hair, they get...
Oh no, they change. So I've seen. So I've unfortunately had some friends that will change like the shape of their body too when they take it, and not for the better.
Right.
You know. And so no, you're completely right. I did get very lucky that when I did send the blood work to him, and he's like, "Let's do a full PCT, and we're gonna kind of almost rebuild you as a bodybuilder." I wasn't too far like gone, you know, or I wasn't too. I hadn't done the damage that wasn't fixable.
And when you do, for people listening, when he means PCT, is post cycle therapy.
Correct.
What were the steps to do that, and why do I mean, aside from the obvious of it just being called post cycle, but why do a post cycle therapy, and then why do it? What does it do? And then what were the steps that you guys were able to take, as much as you're able to say?
So with the post psychotherapy, basically what you're doing is you're trying to turn your natural production of testosterone back on. So I can't remember them off the top of my head, and that's why I pay for a professional coach. But there's 3 compounds, and I think it's like HCG, Clomid, and Novadex, I think are the 3 that you can take. And basically, what it does is it just kickstarts your system again. And so
You'll bring that mic a little closer.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You can fuck around with it and move it.
So you take those, and that basically kickstarts your natural production. And so that's what we did. And you do it for about 3 months. But you also, after the 3 months, you don't run anything for an additional like 3 months. And kind of the rule that I like to go by is, if you're going to do a cycle for 6 months, take off 6 months, in my opinion. And that's just because I think longevity, kind of what you're kind of referencing at the beginning, is super important to me. And that's one of the cool things about Neil is when I first got with him and he saw the cycle and he saw my blood work, he was like, no, it's not okay. He's like, we're going to do a full PCT because he's like, I love bodybuilding. He's like, I want you to be very successful in bodybuilding, but there's a life after bodybuilding. And he's like, I want you to be able to enjoy your life after bodybuilding because bodybuilding is not everything.
Well, it can't be. Like,
No.
Just the way numbers work. You know what I mean? At one point, you're going to hit, everybody has a genetic cap naturally. And then when you start going to the dark side of the moon, you're going to have a genetic cap there too. And not everyone, and I think it's like, with the way he was built, like the less than 1% of people will ever be like a Ronnie Coleman.
Right.
Like that guy was just a fucking freak of nature.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, freak of nature. Phil Heath, all these guys, just freaks of fucking nature. And so many people, especially at a young age, I feel like they just look at that and they're like, oh, they just got their hands on stuff and just blasted it and they became what they became. And it's like, no, actually, like it's ironic. There's a Vice documentary that came out, or like snippet that came out like 7-8 years ago, and I think it's called Juiced. And they're talking to these guys in the in the gym, and they're like, you know, it's a lifestyle. There's guys in here that are on testosterone, that are on steroids, that you couldn't even tell they're on steroids. Well, me and my buddies were watching it, and we're like, you look natural, dude.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. You know what I mean? Like it's a little fun to laugh at sometimes, but like it's unfortunate that you can, because people don't realize that you're changing body chemistry.
Yep.
You're literally changing how your hormones work, and that's going to go into everything from mood and emotion regulation to sex drive to
it's a huge
hair
part
production,
of
your skin. It
can change your personality. I mean, there's a whole lot of factors that go into that.
Aside from your genome, it's who makes you.
Yeah.
Like whatever that weird chemistry is that comes together to make you, to make me, to, you know, it's just, and you're going to mess with that, you should probably be going about it the best type of way.
Right.
So what were you doing to help with your estrogen production? That's what I'm always curious about.
So what's interesting is that I actually stopped taking estrogen blockers because I was getting my blood work done. And so the cool thing too is I went and I go to Beyond Health because they're versed in gear. And so like I told that, so what's cool is I'll get my blood work done and then I have a licensed doctor that will go, okay, what are you taking? I tell them exactly what I'm taking. They're like, okay, this is normal for your levels to be, you know, higher here. This, we should probably start taking this vitamin or supplement to start, you know, making sure that that level doesn't increase more. Or like if your liver is, you know, a little out of whack, these are the different things that you can take as well to make sure that you stay in safe levels. And so, yeah, no, that's essentially the steps that I've taken as far as to make sure that, that I'm not harming myself, essentially.
Yeah. Because one thing that they're always, because I did get on TRT through the VA for a bit, and I'm trying to get back on just because I'm dying every day. But one of the things I was always worried about was, aside from the estrogen levels, it was the hematocrit going up to like the thickness of the blood going up. Because I remember they were telling me that if your free test goes a little, it's like your free test levels can't go too high because that can lead to thick blood and help and hurt your hematocrit and stuff like that. Like, and they were like, yeah, you know, some guys that really do this, they'll like go to blood drives, and that's a cheap way to like thin out their blood or whatever. It's like, well, that's interesting. And it's just interesting learning about like the different ways that people can, again, just not skirt the system, but just like,
well, like you said, kind of go about it the right way. Well, as safely as you can.
As safely as you can, because you have to accept that, like, if you're going to do this, there's going to be a lot of risk. I mean, there's risk in general with natural bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Like, I was like a feathered away little leaf by the time I stepped on stage. Like, I think I started out prep at, like, 186, and I stepped on stage, like, at, like, 186, 189, stepped on stage, like, low 50s, high 40s.
Okay.
And I just felt paper thin. You know what I mean? I felt like a good gust of wind could just take me away. So there's health risks in general. And I actually ended up getting a hernia during my prep, as it turns out.
Oh, wow.
But aside from that, once you do start doing stuff like this, it's like you have to accept risk. But the smartest way to go about it, it seems like the way you're with the people you're with, So further into your post-cycle stuff, what else is it helping you prevent and then also sustain later on?
Right. And then, sorry, I forgot the AI question that you're asking about the estrogen. So when I went to go get that blood work, though, I actually was overproducing, or no, I was overblocking my estrogen. And so my body naturally, I guess, doesn't produce a whole lot of estrogen. So when I take my test, I don't actually even have to really block the estrogen production, which kind of, I mean, works out in my benefit.
Yeah. Saves you money. It's
one less thing I have to take, or one less thing that my liver has to process. But back to the post-cycle therapy. So what I think at least is important for me, or the reason that I do it, is because I do want to try to keep my body at, as close to natural production as possible. And so when you do take gear, you are turning off your system and your natural production. And when you do that, you're weakening the ability for it to come back and actually produce at a high level or produce at the normal level. So to try to mitigate that as much as possible, that's why I do the post-cycle therapy after every show, or after every, this would be 2 shows just because we did them back to back.
And so with this last show, you said you prepped for pretty much 18 weeks.
Yeah.
Even though you've been doing it for a few years now, how do you ease your way into prep? Because the way that I understand it is you can't just start with everything all at once, not just for training and recovery purposes, but it's like you basically have to find not new ways, but you have to introduce new ways to your body, especially when you're cutting weight. It's like, okay, if we're just you can't start out with like an hour and a half of cardio every day. You're gonna burn out your body and all that type of stuff. I said, okay, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, 45 hours, slowly tacking on more and more punishment which is, again, the risk of bodybuilding. You're adding more punishment as you're depleting nutrients and you're depleting calories. So how did you ease your way into this training, training camp, like the prep?
Right.
And then what was the strategy going into it to create what you created at the end of it?
So, I mean, luckily I don't have to do a whole lot of the cardio side. My body naturally, when I wrestled my high school year, I was 132.
Oh, shit.
And then when I was cage fighting in college, 145, the heaviest I fought was 155.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And so my body naturally, even my dad, I think he's 170. My brother's 150, 160 naturally. So I'm not supposed to weigh what I weigh. And so...
What do you walk around at now?
So now I probably walk around... Well, now that we're on a PCT, and I've been off for almost 2 months now, I'm 185. So I stay about 185. So
you're just 30. Muscle and bone.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, and the goal for this off season or for this PCT is to try to maintain that weight, not to lose weight. Because unfortunately, back to the kind of the cardio thing, if I do too much cardio, I lose weight quick. If I don't eat enough, I don't eat 6 times a day, I lose weight. Like luckily my metabolism is still high at the age that I'm at. And so I didn't have to do a whole lot of cardio. But what we did to kind of make sure that, I did this prep safely is when it came to the New Mexico show, I wasn't having to do a whole lot of cardio. The dieting was getting a little rough, but I didn't really have to hardcore diet until about 2 weeks out. And the reason is because we also keep my off season super clean. I still when I'm in the off season, I still eat the steak and potato. I still eat the chicken and rice. It's just larger quantities. Right. So we keep a very clean, my coach is very strict about keeping a clean and toned body throughout the season. We don't do the dirty bulk. We don't do anything like that. And so that I think helps with prep too, because I'm already used to the routine of eating those foods. And then we slowly will take them away, but I'm already pretty cut, so I don't have to cut a whole lot of fat when it comes to prep. And then when it came to the New Mexico show, we didn't really do diuretics. Because we knew we had nationals. So the goal of the New Mexico show was to win, but it was to qualify, and I qualified with second. And so, I wasn't too happy about that, but qualified with second. But we got the job done. And because when I took second, I even asked my coach, I was like, do we even do nationals? And he's like, what are you talking about? We haven't even pulled out the diuretics. Yeah. We haven't even pulled out some of the other we added compounds just for nationals.
Who's your coach again?
Neil Hill.
He seems like a real smart guy.
No, I mean, if you look him up, he's they call him the GOAT in the bodybuilding world, or I think that's what his even Instagram. But no, I mean, he's got some of the top level Olympians. Alex Cabrani was top 5 in classic physique for the past 6-7 years. And then he had Flex Lewis, 7-time Olympian. And so he has a really good base. And he was an IFBB pro himself, but he's a very knowledgeable person. And again, one of the reasons that we went with him is because of that longevity comment he made to me, where I was like, okay, like I know at the end of the day, if stuff started looking dangerous, you're not going to necessarily push me farther to accomplish the goal. You may actually even remind me like, hey, I know you want to accomplish this, but you also have a life after this. Make sure you don't push it over the limit.
Well, and it can turn very toxic very quickly, but he has a monopoly on knowledge that you just don't have.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to trust that this source of knowledge is going to be acting in my best interest, not to just make sure he gets another paycheck.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, no, this guy, just in the beginning, can he have a good outlook on the sport? Can he have a good investment, or at least like his intentions are right?
Right.
And then as that relationship starts building, you're working together, and it's like, no, he's invested in my career path. He obviously loves this sport, takes it very seriously. I mean, for him just to keep you on a diet 24/7, I mean, I don't know a lot of coaches that would really push for that. Granted, I know a lot of athletes that would accept a lot of that too.
Right.
So you have to love it as well.
Yeah.
But if you stay ready, you have to really get ready.
Exactly.
So
And
that's
the
the best
we take.
If you're gonna if you're doing this for a career, that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, and I mean that was when I had made that decision back in Chicago. When I was super excited, I was like, I'm going to do bodybuilding. I made that commitment where I was like, okay, I'm going to do it until I'm like 35, 36, which means that's like a good 8, years of doing this, and I'm going to make sure that I commit to it. But I want to do it correctly.
Is that generally speaking when bodybuilders stop doing it these days? Is about 35, 36?
Yeah, well, you'll see a couple of the seasons guys, they'll get close to 40, but right around that age is when I think your body starts tapping out, or where it gets to the point. What I see a lot of them is the doctors start going, hey, like, you did it, good job, but like, let's step back, because otherwise you're going to have some real consequences.
It blows my fucking mind, and I'm going to sound like every other guy between the ages of 22 and 30 right now. It blows my fucking mind that Chris Bumstead's like 28 years old.
Oh, I know, yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a compliment or a negative thing, because he looks fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He's he needs to be studied.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he's one of those gifted athletes that you're talking about.
But he
just
also
genetically, his body just is bodybuilding.
and he just looks like he's fucking like 32, 35.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. I don't know how somebody does that. Anyway, it blows my fucking mind that he's like my age.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I go to open mics 3 times a week, and I write dick jokes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No. Yeah. Well, he's 2 years younger than me, and so I'm still like, how did you get that like that quick?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he started when he was a little bit younger, but even then, it's incredible what he's accomplished. At 28 years old.
And it's like you see the pictures of Ronnie Coleman when he was bodybuilding like naturally. It's like, was he natural, whatever? But even then, like before he really started just
blown up,
like,
he's gifted.
Still big.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Well, even Phil Heath, when his basketball photos,
yeah,
he wasn't massive, but you're like, he still looked pretty ripped for a little basketball player.
Yeah.
And so
seeing bodybuilders like in regular life is so funny to me. Like the little stint that Ronnie Coleman had as a cop.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Always cracks me
Could
the
you
fuck
imagine having him walk into your house as the cop? Like, I think anyone that would be like, I think I'm going to fight the cops on this one, or I'm going to get away. I think he'd walk in and I'd be like, nope, it's cool.
Yeah, it solves crime immediately.
Or I'd be just amazed. I'd be like, there's no way. Like, you're not real,
When the police officer can't fit through your doorway, he has to turn sideways
just to get through. Because I don't know how tall Ronnie Coleman was, but he easily was probably
he's
walking around.
He's like 6'3", 6'4".
Oh, so then he was easily 300 and something pounds in the off season. That's a massive, just like person.
But then you talk about, there has to be some kind of life after bodybuilding. The poor guy.
Yeah.
He's got his entire spine is fused. Walks around on his crutches or his cane.
Yeah.
What's
wild though is his mindset though.
Yeah.
He doesn't regret it. Like, no. I've never seen him be like,
Well, you can't. At that
I guess
level,
that's true. I mean, if you've made it that far, you're like, okay, I can't go back on this,
Yeah, no, you've made that life commitment. And also, I'm sure when he's, driving around his, $100,000 of cars and, getting paid millions to go out and speak.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
That's probably true.
It's not too bad.
That does ease it a little bit.
Winning solves everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting now that like the way, just science and the way that medicine is improved now to where like I'd imagine if he was bodybuilding today, there's a lot more recovery. Well, first of all,
I wonder, yeah.
Well, first of all, doctors wouldn't be fusing his fucking spine together.
True.
That I don't think that's going on at all anymore.
Yeah.
But it's like he probably would have gotten introduced to like different clinics down in like Mexico, and I know there's one down in Panama for like stem cells and stuff like that are actually helping people a lot. Like I know a lot of fighters go down there. Has that even come into the question yet for you, stem cell therapy or anything like that?
As soon as it becomes, if I get the opportunity, I would take advantage of it. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, you had talked about like body work and stuff like that. So no, I mean, I do regular blood work, and then I do get my body work done on probably every like 3 weeks or 4 weeks is when I'll go get an appointment. During prep, it's every 2 weeks.
When you define worked on, like what kind of like therapy are you doing?
The cupping, scraping, like
that should actually help.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think cupping is interesting because I do know that there's like a stipulation that it may not work or like it's not actually that effective, but I feel like it's done works for me.
Well, it's health. It's like everything else. Well, generally speaking, outside of like penicillin and health. If it works for you, it works for you, and not everything's going to work for you is going to work for me, and vice versa. So, what's the science behind that? It's like they're getting all of the blood to one area.
I think it's blood movement. So, from my understanding, it's if you have like thicker blood in an area, what it's doing is it's moving it. It's like it's creating some type of like movement and trying to unblock it, or it's helping with the inflammation in that area. And so, I know that like the darker the cup, I guess the more, or the thicker the blood was in that area, the more like stuck or like congratulated. I can't remember the word for it, but
that makes a lot of sense because I see pictures of my friends that try to do it for the first time, and it's just like black, almost. And then my other friends, they're like super healthy, do it all the time. It's just like a light red, like little red, like a light pink. It's like like in real time, I'm realizing right now that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Damn. And then scraping.
Yeah, that's so what that essentially does, and usually it's with like a metal tool, and it's horribly painful, but it breaks the fascia. So like what would be like whenever you do it, you can hear the popping of like fascia, and so that's all it's doing is just working fascia out. So
what do you mean by working fascia for?
That's a great question. I'm not even sure what fascia really is. But I know that it's like it'll collect around like your joints and stuff like that. And that popping, and I'm guessing it either causes like whenever you feel tight or like whenever you feel like muscles or like that area isn't moving correctly or not stretching correctly.
Oh, it's like when people used to say like, I know it got debunked now, but I remember like back in high school it was like, yeah, you have a pump in your sore because of lactic acid or some shit. Yeah. And everyone knows that's not true anymore.
Yeah.
So is that what it's helping with?
That's what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing, or well, not the interesting thing, but going back to like paying someone with the knowledge. I was actually having this conversation with the brokerage owner that I work for now. He was like, oh, like he was asking me a question about like the carbs or anything like that, or like, do I count my macros? And I was like, no. I don't have I honestly don't have the time to learn too much in that area. I love bodybuilding and the like posing and the working out aspect, but like the science behind it, I know the basics, but that's why I pay someone, and that's why I sought someone out that knew that knowledge. So I have a coach that does that. My bodywork person, it was the best person I could find that was like the most knowledgeable in that area. So I'll pay the money in order to have that skill set still involved in my life, but me not having to actually take the steps to learn it because I just don't have the capacity to learn that.
Yeah,
I'm focused on my my career right now.
Yeah, no, I that's totally understandable. I mean, having to sit down and actually like learn because it's like a fucking chemistry formula, figuring out what percentage of carbohydrates and fats and protein and this and that is going to work with your body, what makes you feel better, what makes you fuller, whatever. Yeah. Again, I'm very thankful that my buddy Poncho, who coached me through my first show, he had like broken down for me like, okay, as we're like entering prep, you should probably sustain by eating this, and then as we get into, you're gonna do this, and you're just gonna break it down this way, and I was very happy because like a lot of I've kind of fallen out of dieting well, especially since my surgery, but it's like I can still go back to those diets, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can eat these, still feel happy. I don't feel like I want to shoot myself because of how like depleting they can be.
Yeah,
and it's just generally speaking healthy.
Yeah, so you usually feel better too. Like I mean, after like a week of eating good, you feel a little bit better.
Yes, well, I was just having that conversation because there was like a good week and a half period I was just eating like shit.
Oh yeah.
And the last like 5 days, I've just been like, yeah, I mean, no real processed foods, just make my own stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't feel bloated after lunch.
Yep.
I don't wake up in the morning wanting to just like destroy my toilet. You know what I mean?
No,
like
it's well, so it's funny.
There's so much shit in our food these days.
My fiance hates it because she says I ruin vacations for wanting to go to the gym on vacation. But I know, like, if we go on a vacation that is longer than 3 days, that third day, I'm just not going to feel great. If we're eating out every meal, or we're having to find, meals, or we're not eating my normal routine, I know usually about day 3, I don't feel great. And so, like, it affects my vacation afterwards. Or if I don't work out for a certain amount of time, I feel stiff. I feel like it doesn't feel normal for me.
And it sucks, but that's the correct response from your body.
Yeah.
That's your body telling you, hey, dumbass, like, we're used to...
I need better fuel.
This, like, high-quality stuff you're putting into my body. Where is it?
Right.
If you want to maintain all of this, we can't be doing...
Well, and then also, this doesn't process it the same.
Yeah.
Like, dairy... can't do it anymore. After my first day, it was after my first prep, I couldn't drink like regular milk. I had to go to lactate free.
Is that just a part of growing up? Because
I don't know.
Because how old are you?
30.
You're 30? Okay, yeah. Because I'm 27. All my friends are about 27, 28, 29.
Okay.
And we're all phasing out of dairy right now. And it's like, we just can't do it. None of us.
I wonder, that's interesting. So, because my lifting partner, he's 24, 25, I think. So he's younger than me, but he drinks regular milk still.
God bless him.
We'll find out. No, well, let's see if in a year or two, because, oh, dude, I can't do milk anymore because it wasn't the bodybuilding for him. I'll let you know. Because
there is only one of my buddies and he's a power lifter, and he goes on and off the GoMad stuff.
Okay.
The gallon of milk a day. And he used to do that a lot just to gain weight for shows, and just get more mass so his body can handle deadlifting 600 fucking pounds.
The glass of milk and the scoop of peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he and I keep telling him, because he's like 29, 30. I'm like, dude, one day your body's gonna hate you for all that fucking dairy.
Yeah.
Because it's just I don't know what it is. I eat like a little bit of ice cream and I die.
Yeah. No. Yeah. What's funny though is I wonder. Because I've never Googled that. I've never Googled does dairy, the older you get, is dairy harder to process? Because I was talking to my buddy Kiki, and we were talking about something. I think we were talking about why I like Jay's boat. And I was like, I've had this conversation multiple times, and I feel like I've even talked about dairy too multiple times, but never took the time to actually go Google it. And so we ended up Googling, and we solved why Jay's boat. It's because of just the wind flow in the area. That's the only reason. But I've never Googled that either. And so it's funny that you bring that up. I feel like there's a lot of things that people will bring up, and you're like, I've had this conversation multiple times. Why haven't I Googled it?
It's the simulation. We all live in it.
Oh yeah,
it's a simulation. Okay, so as you're going into this prep, and you already talked about your diet, about how you just maintain it throughout the off season anyway, so it's not hard to do it. Turn it on, all right, time to eat
less
good food, and eat less, and all that. How do you deplete? Well, actually, before I ask that, are you just getting told by your coach hey, don't worry about the macros. You need to eat, per meal.
Oh, it's in grams. Yeah.
This many ounces or grams of chicken, rice, stuff like that.
Yep, exactly.
So generally speaking, because again, this does not work for everybody.
Yeah.
This is in a very hyper-specific situation where you are trying to build your... Well, they call it bodybuilding, but it's in prep, you are breaking your body down as much as humanly possible without losing muscle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're depleting every other aspect other than just the muscle.
You're sculpting yourself like a piece of marble, but in that way, most of that marble's ending up on the floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in that sense, let's say so you did an 18-week prep. Let's say week 8 or week 9. How many ounces of chicken how many meals are you having a day? How many grams of protein or grams of a meat source are you having generally?
So generally, and so the nice thing about prep, and I'm just lucky, I think, because again, if I don't eat enough, I shrink. So I was still eating 6 meals a day during prep, and my carbs really weren't cut that low. I think the lowest we were doing was 80 grams of rice in each meal still.
Okay, that's not bad.
No, it wasn't, yeah. And I think most of the time it was right around the 120. But generally in the off season or during the normal prep or probably 8 weeks out, I'm still eating probably about 150 grams of carbs and about 170 grams of protein. And then usually he'll throw a little bit of veggies in there. And then at night, I'm usually eating about 200 grams of potato and about 170 grams of steak. And then I'll have an oats meal after that too.
Are you like, is there a strict time where it's like after this, no food, and then no food until this time, like when you're resting?
No, he had. I mean, well, so his plan is pretty. I mean, so Neil's plans are very like regimented, where it's like eat this meal, drink 500 milliliters of water right after, drink 750 milliliters between this meal and this meal. Now I follow it as best as I can, just because at the same time, like I'm human and I also have to work, and so like I'm not bodybuilding for Unfortunately, I haven't cracked the code to make bodybuilding my profession, but so I follow it as best as I can. But I mean, his is there's not really a cutoff time, I would say, for like stop eating now or begin eating now, just because he's more concerned with like make sure you fit everything in, like get the calories in, because that's most important for me. And so no, there's not really a cutoff, and sometimes I'll have to stack meals, where I'll stack meal 2 and 3, and it's just like a giant plate, and I just gotta get it down.
That is it. One thing I miss about prep was you get so used, this is how it was for me anyway, you get so used to the foods so that afterwards, if you have a cheat meal, it tastes like the best hamburger you've ever had in your life. And then you even get to appreciate like simple foods. Like one of my meals that I would have like in the last like 3 weeks, it was literally just a plate of eggs. Like that's what it was by the end of the day. It was just a plate of eggs and like a little bit of oatmeal on the side. And so I would have my egg whites and I would mix sugar-free ketchup and mustard on top of it with a little bit of Cholula on it.
Okay.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
It tastes so good.
It's crazy though, because it is such a like it's eggs and sugar-free ketchup and mustard. It sounds like a super sad meal, but I totally know what you mean.
It tastes amazing.
We're like, well, eat like fish, salmon, and rice with a little bit of like pink salt. Sometimes during prep was just like the best thing ever. I was like, oh, I could eat 3 plates of this.
Are you watching your like salt intake at all? Is that a worry?
No, not for me. Not necessarily. Actually, we start implementing more salt as we get closer to the show to try to draw the water.
Okay.
Because salt, so it's interesting, and again, it comes down to everyone's bodies is so different. Because like my body loves carbs running into the show. Like we're gonna carb load 3 days out. Because my body just responds really well to carbs. But I have friends that like you can't eat any carbs. If you get carbs, you'll spill over or you'll look bloated. And so just lost my train of thought as to what we were even.
So we're talking about how your body will react differently. We're talking about sodium intake.
Oh, sodium intake. So back to so there's some people that will cut out sodium right before prep. I think Ryan Terry, who won the Olympia last year for men's physique. I believe he was one of those guys that used to cut sodium out right before. But for me, I have to increase my sodium because it helps with my water absorption. Because the more sodium you take, that'll help the water get absorbed, or the sodium helps like dry it out. It pulls the water out.
Okay, explain that a little bit more because you kind of lost me at the end there. So by the time you step on stage, you want more water to be absorbed?
You would know. So like the sodium helps push it. It dehydrates you.
Oh, it dehydrates you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the more sodium, if I'm eating
sense.
a super salty meal, I'm going to be thirsty. And so same kind of concept. We increase the salt intake to make sure that we're pushing the water out. That's what essentially I think that's how my coach describes it, pushing the water out. But we're just dehydrating ourselves.
Right. Okay, that makes more sense. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, that's just that's the scary part of bodybuilding. Every now and again, when you see a guy go down on stage, I mean, we've all seen videos like that where, because again, like, so people just kind of consume passively or see, old footage of Arnold or see like Bumstead now because he's everywhere. It's like, oh, these guys look fucking amazing. They're anatomy classes. Like, look at these dudes. But it's like, no, they are like dying.
Yeah, no, it's the worst you've ever. It's the best you've ever looked, but the worst you've ever felt is how stage feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's wild because like when you get to stage day, and don't get me wrong, like the seeing like the video footage afterwards and stuff is like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like we pulled off something pretty cool. You look like you look and feel like a superhero. But I do know that like leading up to actually stepping on stage, you're dying. I mean, like you're hating life. You're eating rice cakes with honey, and that was like with salt on it, and that's the best thing of the day. And so I just feel like
that's a core memory was the chocolate rice cakes with a little bit of honey.
Yep.
Yeah, that shit's dope.
Yeah. And so, it's wild because you don't feel you lead. It's like this, and again, like 18 weeks, you're like leading up, and it's done in 5 minutes. I mean, you're on stage for, prejudging is what determines the entire like placing, especially at like regional shows and even nationals. They don't really rejudge unless you're in the overall for like finals. So like everything happens in prejudging, and it happens like 5 minutes and you're done. And so it's just wild that, yeah, you deplete and you feel like crap leading up to stepping on stage. You do it, but then at the same time, it's totally worth it afterwards.
Yeah. And
It's,
so
it's a sick sport.
so no, it's fucking awesome. Like it's
Like sick, good, and awesome, but also like sick that like,
Yeah.
it's crazy that that's addictive.
Yeah.
That, like depleting your body to that point where you're like, I hate life. But then like, I want to do it again. Like I can't wait till next prep, you know?
Well, that's not to sound like a misogynist, but I really do think that, especially in men, that is like a biological thing that it will always be a part of us. We need something we need to go conquer something. We need to go build something. We need to go create something, and that turns around and it fuels our families, right? But then we need something, because obviously women bodybuilders, and they're just as much as the freak shows as the men are.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fun. I went to Revel. Funny thing, at that show I was telling you about, I went to Revel, and the bartender behind there, she's fucking, and I was like, what the shit? So she just gave me and I felt like such a bitch, by the way, because she's fucking clearly jacked.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, can I have a Miller Lite, please?
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you compete? He's like, yeah, I'm an NPC. I'm like, oh my God, good for you.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that women do bodybuilding as well, but I like, especially for men, I really do think that that's just in us. Somewhere in our biology, in our DNA, there's something where it's like, how far can you push yourself?
Yeah.
Can you do like, can you run another mile? Can you do another 10 reps? Can you do another bodybuilding show?
Yeah.
Can you eat 500 less calories? Can you, whatever it is that's going to like push you what you think to that breaking point is?
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so addictive to guys. They really get into it and love it that much.
What's interesting, so I don't know if you like, I feel like that trend though, because I was talking to my lifting partner about this, because he was saying the same thing. He's like, I feel like there's just like, there's this biological for thousands of years that's just embedded in, the male complex, that you have to go, kill what you eat.
Yeah.
There's that providing, you go out and hunt, or there's some type of drive. But I feel like in society today, that a lot of that's missing, or like it's taken that hit, and there's very little people that get that itch or try to fill it in some type of fashion.
Well, because even with how comfortable, again, there's a lot of things that are going wrong right now.
Yeah.
Not just in America, but just across the world. There's a lot of things bad happening. But we also live in some of the best times to be alive ever. But with that comfort, there's no real outlet generally speaking, outside of like exercise. There's no real outlet to get out that like, I want to go hunt something. I want to go kill something. I want to go create something, conquer something. And I guess like the more modern term for it now is like entrepreneurship, where it's like, I'm going to go out and create my own business. I'm going to go, I'm going to go like I'm going to go be an entertainer. I'm going to go whatever it is. And that's why during the pandemic, because people want to feel, alongside with that conquering aspect of being a guy, both men and women, they want to feel useful in their community.
Yeah.
When you really break it, I think it's the most simple way to put it is men and women, they want to feel useful in their community. And generally speaking, that's man goes out and provides, women create the home in one way or another. And as we start to erode those things, not that it's obviously it's not a bad thing that women can go and have careers and shit like that. Yes. But just like, I think the best way I've ever heard it put was in the politics realm, but I think it applies everywhere else in life. Like, there are no compromises, there are trade-offs.
Okay.
So when you start to erode like societal or like communal norms, it's like, well, you're gonna have a couple of speed bumps in the road.
Oh yeah.
And one of those things is like when people stop feeling useful and people stop feeling like they could really contribute in a helpful way to their community, especially during something like the pandemic where things get locked down, people lose their businesses. It's no wonder that suicide rates skyrocket, that overdoses skyrocket, that self-harm skyrockets. I mean, during the pandemic, I think booze sales went up 210%. I might be a little off in that statistic, but I know it was
Either
more.
Way, it was there was a significant increase.
Incredible how bad or how much, it's a negative thing, but how much alcohol sales skyrocket. It's like, well, I can't really go out and make money, and I just got this check from the government that might sustain me, might not.
Right.
Wife doesn't love me too much, doesn't respect me as much anymore, because even though it's out of my control, I can't go out and make money and provide.
Yep. So there's stress, there's some type of financial stress.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I don't really want to shoot myself.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to feel anything tonight.
Yeah.
So we'll get a couple bottles of Jack.
Yeah.
And but just to wrap this all full circle, it is ingrained, I really do believe this, that like, in men it is ingrained in us that at the end of the day, we want to go out and provide and conquer, bring that back to our families. And and a lot of that is missing in society right now, because it's like, guys, I'm one of them. I go to a 9-to-5 job, just a regular 9-to-5 job. I sit in my office. I do my thing. I'm very happy to have my job.
Yeah.
Especially today.
Yeah.
I'm very thankful to have the job that I have, because it allows me to go out and do everything that I do outside of my work.
Right.
It pays the bills, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'll be sitting at my desk, and it's like this. It happens, like, no joke, like 2 times a day. Every day that I'm at work, I'll be sitting there, and I just get this like jolt, where it's like there's energy pent up in here that is not getting released.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, this is not what the human body was built for, was to sit in an office under fluorescent lights, looking at 2 computer screens, doing office work 40 hours to 50 hours a week. Mm-hmm. We were meant for more than this.
Yeah.
Now, again, with trade-offs, I'm not convinced that the alternative is much better for a civilized society, but it's just a matter of like, how do you get that energy released?
Right.
And I think there's positive and negative ways that those happen, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's why I don't like a lot of what the Democratic Party is doing at all. However, one thing that got introduced a couple months ago was the idea of a 32-hour work week.
Yeah. I saw that.
Yeah, so it's like, well, that could be, because I used to work 4 days a week a few years ago. I had a salary job where I would work Fridays through Mondays.
Okay.
And I remember having Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, and I was like, okay, that was great, because Tuesday's like the whiplash of getting off of work. Okay, what do I need to do? What shit do I need to get done? Okay, Wednesday's the sweet spot. And then Thursday was like prepping for the work week.
Right.
That is the good enough amount of time where it's like I can get all that energy out. I feel relaxed, but then I'm just like, okay, I need to go feel productive again.
Yeah.
2 days off of work is like, especially if you're doing stuff outside of work, because whether or not it's your passion, like, you clearly love bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But there are some days, I would imagine, where it doesn't feel like a passion.
No, yeah, absolutely.
It feels like work.
Oh, yeah.
And you still need to do something to take your mind off of that, right? To have a more quiet moment, to like decompress from that. And not a lot of that can happen in 2 days.
No, really though. Yeah, no. And it's, especially because I'm in the real estate realm. I work weekends, especially because I'm trying to build something. And so, I'm constantly working. And so, having that healthy time off, I think is super key. Although, what's interesting is I wonder, because, talking about like entrepreneurs and people that create successful businesses, a lot of them are working throughout the entire week. And so I wonder I think what I've started to do is we try to take at least a trip every quarter, and at least a week off, because that's the only way. And then, we'll self-reflect during that week. We usually go try to do it at a cabin. I'm a big proponent of mushrooms.
I didn't want to say that's where this conversation was going, but I could see it in your eye.
Yeah.
There's a little twinkle.
Yeah.
It's like, I know where this is going.
But I'm
Beautiful.
A huge proponent of that, because I think it opens up that ability to self-reflect. If you're stuck in something it brings down those barriers so that you can deal with it, whether it's personally, in our relationship, anything like that. It's been a huge help.
Oh, you guys take mushrooms together?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God bless.
Yeah.
Oh, God bless. You guys are going to get married, and you're going to be the new Kennedy family for this country.
Yeah.
If you can take mushrooms with your partner and make it out alive, you're supposed to be together.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
And it's incredible now, because, now we, we almost have like it's not a routine, but like it seems to be a pattern where it's, we work through a lot in the first part of the trip, and then, we self-reflect together and kind of talk about those things. And then afterwards you get to enjoy the trip, And so, but it's been, it's been really cool. And so, but that's how I balanced it. So not having, that 3 week off, or like not being able to take, time off during the week, just because I have to commit to my career right now too, if I'm going to build something cool or build something great. Allocating those times to try to unplug and really, take a step back and not focus on bodybuilding, not focus on all the stuff that feels like it could be a work.
Well, think about the way that you just described that. It's very regimented. your time is managed well, and even on your off time, it's not really like you're just sitting there like
No, it's intentional.
just like flipping through Netflix, playing video games, whatever. Not those things are bad, but just like everything else, when used outside of moderation, it's detrimental to the human body.
Oh, yeah,
whether
yeah.
it's physical, mental, emotional, whatever. But the way you just described that, even with your off time, it's you're doing something that's going to better your life. You're doing something that is going to push the needle and move you forward. And I think that's and to tie that back into, entrepreneurs that are working around the clock and this and the other. First of all, I don't think anybody that says they're working 24/7 is really working 24/7.
No, it's impossible.
If you have to project, it's humans do it. It's a real issue. We all have it. It's projecting.
Mm-hmm.
It is. If you say that you are working 24/7 and you don't take time off, you don't take breaks, you're always this, you're always that, you can have your routines. Like, I believe wholeheartedly that every time he travels, The Rock steps down and goes to the gym.
Yeah.
I believe that. It shows in his body. It shows in the way he talks about it with passion. I believe that. But I don't believe these fucking finance bros that are like, it never ends. It never stops. The grind. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude.
It's not sustainable.
Stop it.
There's no way. The times that I have been that busy where I do feel like I'm working 24/7, which I'm not still working 24/7.
Yeah.
Because that's an exaggeration. It'll last about a week and a half before I'm like, I'm gonna break down.
You're gonna burn out.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna like have a break, like a psychological break if I don't rest. It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable at all. So I think the most people, or the most successful people, get to that point by just time management.
Yeah, it's huge.
They're like, okay, this is the time where I don't fuck around and I work, whether it's 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours a day. Like, this is how those 10 hours are regimented. This is how this is all divvied up.
Oh, yeah.
To where it's like, I'm not just working on one general thing for 10 hours. Like, no, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. Then my rest is broken up like this. My recreation time, my relationship building time, whether it's like family, wife, husband, whatever, is over here. And it's all managed properly to where your brain knows what's coming next. It's comfortable to what's coming next. And when a wrench gets thrown in the plan, you can adjust and move on.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, just in the way that you described the way that it's like, every quarter we're going to take a vacation, take a week off. It's like, you have that goal to look forward to, or not goal. You have that like reward to look forward to.
Yeah.
And that where it justifies you're working your ass off now so that you can relax a little bit later and just recharge, and then the cycle continues.
And even in my day, that's I feel like important, because you were talking about like this at time allocation. So, I get to the office at 8:39 and I leave at 3:30. But during that time I'm in work mode. Yeah. I barely have time for like lunch. That's what I'll forget to like eat lunch. I'll go, because I'm just that mode. But then from 3:30 to 5:30, that's gym time. That's which is a nice little unplug. I look forward to. I'll work harder to make sure that I get my work done so that I can have a good, gym where I'm not like really stuck in my work ways. That doesn't always work out. And then I get home and usually I'll work for another hour or two if there's anything I have to clean up. And then she's in pharmacy school, so she tries to allocate her time where just about like
God bless.
Yeah, that's what she's doing right now. She's studying actually because she has her first week of exams this next up and coming Monday. But she'll try to finish at like 8 p.m. too. And then we try to allocate those 2 to 3 times for like relationship and like time spent where we're unplugged a little bit. And it's crazy. You talk about like you look forward to that quarter trip, but I also even just look forward to those 2 hours at night.
Yeah.
And I'll work harder during the day to make sure that I accomplish and I'm productive so that I have that time and it doesn't bleed over.
How important do you feel like it is to have, because obviously you're somebody that works very hard, how important is it to be involved, be in a relationship with somebody that's also working hard at something that they enjoy?
I think
that's not living like a sedentary lifestyle. It's not fucking off. Let's put it that way.
No,
because So I should have said this in the outset, but we do have 2 other people in the studio today. Thank you guys for coming in.
Yeah.
And one of them has had I think that's an iPad.
Yeah.
Has had her face buried in the iPad the whole time. So pharmacy school makes perfect sense.
Yep.
So how important is that?
I think it's a huge importance, and the reason is because you actually have the ability to relate. I think it's super tough if you're in that space where you are like time. You have to literally allocate time during the day just for your relationship, and then you have someone that doesn't allocate time at all, or doesn't have a set schedule, not furthering themselves, or isn't invested in something. it's so tough to relate, where they feel like they just won't understand, when you can't take time away from those allocated times because they're allocated for a purpose and for a reason. And then that's just where, I feel like a lot of couples, they come unfortunately to a head, usually, and that's usually where the, relationship will break, because one person is moving in a certain direction at a certain speed, and this person's almost like an anchor, where it's like, oh no, you should spend more time with me, like on the weekends, or, you need to be able to, take a day off, and that's tough, because at some points it's like, oh, well, work-life balance. But at the same time, like, there's goals that have to be met, and there's, deadlines that have to happen. And if you really do want to accomplish something, we're only on this earth for a short amount of time, and I don't want to work for the rest of my life.
I saw someone said, or a post that was like there's only 75 summers average.
Oh, so this is wild.
And I was like, fuck, dude, don't put it like that.
No,
because I've lived through 27 of them now.
Yeah, well, so there's a board, and I've almost bought it, and I haven't, because it's.
I know exactly where you're going with this, but explain it. Explain it.
So essentially, it's a board that has, and I think it's down to weeks. I think it's weeks that it's broken down to, and so every week that you accomplish, you put an X. And I think it's up to like age 85. You can pick the age, I think, even too. So if you say I'm going to live till 90, you put it at 90, and then it's literally you when you look at this board, it's your life on a time, because like half the board when you're 30, a third of the board's filled out, and then it really puts into perspective how much time you have left on the planet, and that's just, it's scary, because death is such a hard thing to swallow when you actually think about it. I think at our age it's a lot harder. I think as you get older, as long as you feel like you've accomplished and you don't have a whole lot of like, hopefully regret, I feel like a lot of older people accept that. We're like, okay, like death's coming, like I'm ready for it. I've lived my life. But yeah, that's just, it's interesting to put in perspective, because yeah, death right now is super scary. But when you put it like that, you're like, oh man, I really only have 2/3 of my life left. If I get lucky at 90.
Have you found a lot of pleasure and a lot of self-fulfillment in the process of building what you're building?
Yeah.
Not just looking at the future and being like, yeah, one day it'll be this, or one day it'll be that, and it'll look like this, but the actual, like, the hammer to the grindstone kind of thing that's going on in your life right now. Have you found a lot of pleasure and beauty in that?
So it's interesting, because I would say yes and no. And the reason that I say that is because sometimes it's like, is it worth it? And also too, it's a gamble. Like when you think about the end goal and you picture it and you're like, I'm going to own multiple houses, or, this is what I imagine my life being. It's not a guarantee that you're going to hit that. And so, at one point I don't love it. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if this is even worth it. But then at the same point, Alex Hermosi makes the selection effect. And that's really what drives me. And that's where I get my fulfillment out, where I'm like, okay, I've done this for another year. There's probably, I don't know, hundreds of other people or thousands of other people that were on the same trajectory and they didn't make it this far. And if I go another year, another like thousands of people are going to drop off. And then if I go another year, and then when you compound, I love the idea of like Ed Milet talks about compound pounding. Eventually, if you're doing it correctly and you're learning and you're growing each year and you're actually taking feedback and you're making adjustments, if you do something for 8-10 years, like, and that's why I like bodybuilding. I was like, I'm going to commit 8 years to this. You're gonna accomplish something pretty cool in 8 years if you're constantly hitting that grind. And so
if you're doing productive work,
yes, you have. That's the tough part. Is like you have to be doing the right stuff long enough for it to work. Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes people they're doing the work, but they're not taking the feedback. They're not actually growing and they're not compound pounding. They're not, creating that overall growth throughout the process that eventually does get to a point where you're a specialist, by the end of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's, the only guaranteed way that it doesn't work out is that if you quit, and it's a very generic thing to say, very cliche thing to say, but it's the truth. It's like, if the only guarantee that whatever you're trying out is going to fail, it's if you quit. Yeah. Because one more day that you're doing it, that's another possible day that something could go right.
Something could click.
Something could succeed and go well. And it all boils down to numbers. I mean,
yes.
There's a lot more variables in bodybuilding than real estate. But at least with real estate, you're looking at it like, no, at the end of the day, I don't know shit about real estate, but I'm just guessing outside looking in. It all comes down to like numbers on a page. It's like, okay, this is how this is what the market's looking like right now. What's your understanding of the market? What's your understanding is, are we in a buyer or in a seller's market right now? Are people actually looking to buy? Like, what's going on? All that kind of stuff. I do want to talk a bit, before we move to your real estate life.
Yeah.
Mushrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What, you kind of broke down a little bit about how the experience usually goes.
Yeah.
On a personal level, what benefits, other than just like they feel funny?
Yeah.
I don't like to call mushrooms fun. I think they feel funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's a better way to put it. They just feel funny.
Yeah.
What are like some personal benefits you've found out of doing that? And where do you, if you mind me asking, where do your dosages usually hover around?
So the first dosage was, because I I'd seen a lot of entrepreneurs like talk about Joe Rogan talks about them. There's a lot of pro mushroom people out there. And so we actually had just started talking, and had only been talking for probably a couple months. She had never done mushrooms either. And I was like, hey, want to go rent a cabin in Rio Doso and let's go do some mushrooms? And luckily she said yes. And so we went, and I didn't really have any intentions for the first one. And so, but I took 3 grams. So I went for a trip. You know, it was a pretty good dosage. And she probably took about the same, because all I did was I grinded it up. I was like, I think I bought 8 grams, and I was like, cool, let's do them all. And so we did like the 2, I think, up front, and then one after a few. Like I kind of spaced them out. And then the actual feeling was interesting, because again, we had only been talking for a few months, but I mean, like on the trip, I probably cried the entire time. Not bad crying, happy tears.
Yeah, right.
And it's kind of that because it's interesting, because what it does do, I think I say like it opens your third eye. But you do feel, in my opinion, you do realize that everything is kind of connected. I do feel like there are certain energies. I do feel like people transfer, you know, like you can feel those things. And it was really cool, because we just had a lot of the same experiences. And then we had some really cool conversations, because I do think it opens up some perspectives and it breaks down some boundaries. And that's why they feel funny. You know, it changes how your mindset is during the time of the trip. And it allows you to, I think, open up some doors that you haven't opened up when you are not on the trip. And then that's what we discovered. We were like, wow, that was really cool. That was super insightful. And we feel like super recharged to go back out in society and like be like even better people, you know? And so
I'm gonna go hug somebody.
Yeah. No, so
I need to be a better person.
I was talking to my friend, and luckily I've never had a bad trip. I've never had like an intense bad trip, but he had one. He's like, no, but he's on the same page where he's like, if you need to go meet God during your trip, it's because you needed to. Like whatever the trip brings you, or if it's like a bad trip, it's because it's something you got to deal with.
Yep.
And we actually, one of her cousins owns a wellness clinic, and they do trips, and they're in that space.
Oh shit.
And he talks about even throwing up, that sometimes like if your body throws up from the mushrooms, your body just needed to throw up. It needed to get something out, or like it's resetting your stomach or something along the lines of that. And I don't know if there's like a science behind that, but I do believe that it does kind of whenever you take it, as long as you kind of take it with, you know, that outside perspective, like something's being taught here. I think you can get anything, like even a bad trip, you're going to get something out of it.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And maybe this is coming from a place of ignorance, but I really do believe, and also because of my religious background, I really believe that with mushrooms, outside of just understanding that that it's psilocybin and it gets stored in your spinal fluid and all that kind of stuff, I don't think there's any science behind it. I think it is all spiritual. I think it's all God. I really do. And that's with any psychedelic. That's with, I've only done mushrooms, but that's with mushrooms, that's with DMT, that's with all of that stuff. I think it is a lot more God than it is science. It's more magic than it is like...
And I wonder the experiences that they write about in the Bible, I wonder if there was a touch of that in there.
That's what they talk about with, I think it was Moses in the burning bush.
Yeah, see? Yes.
Right?
I mean, because that could easily be depicted in I could easily see that in a shroom trip.
Well, because the historians that have gone to that area have found that a lot of the vegetation there has grown with whatever one of the active chemical is in DMT that's in those bushes.
Interesting.
So I think it is, obviously is God, in my opinion, and my belief system, is God powerful enough just to go talk to somebody? Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
But also, I wouldn't say it's far-fetched to say that God used a chemical to talk to a guy. I wouldn't really be that shocked, especially after having my own experiences on mushrooms. Yeah, it's like, because how my brain works. Every time I've taken them, it's fun and it's loopy or whatever, but I always end up looking up.
I was gonna say,
like, I always end up looking towards space. I always like, okay, yeah, there's definitely more out there than all of this bullshit.
We always try to pick nature. Like, that's what cabin. You know, like I think all of our, other than the one on the beach, we did take some in Turks and Caicos. That was real wild. That was a wild story getting them into Turks and Caicos. No, we try to go to nature because, you know, you say you look up, but then I feel like I look up and then I look at nature.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is incredible. Like, if you think about the ecosystems that are out there and how they all kind of just like work together, there's a whole, like, there's us humans and we have society, but there's an entire ecosystem of thousands of animals that operates on a daily basis that all intertwine and somehow feed each other. And, like, you know, it's like, what?
Well,
you know?
and see,
how do you not have a god?
To people who've never taken mushrooms, never done any types of stuff, like, oh, this guy's a fucking hippie.
Yeah, no,
this guy's a dork. But it's like, no, maybe you just need to have a little bit of a life-changing experience.
Really, though, yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, we are all connected. What the fuck is going on around here?
Yep.
Because I used to do it with my buddies, and same thing, like 3 or 4 grams around there, and talk about a bad trip. This is why I stopped taking mushrooms, because I feel like I had a very short, I did have a very short relationship with mushrooms, and they have held their place in my life, and I'm very thankful for that. Never going back to it.
Gotcha, yeah.
Because it was October of 2020. Yeah, October of 2020. Recently got back from deployment. A few buddies came into town. My buddies that are here, we all got together, and I just figured, so I'll pull our money together. We'll just get one big thing of mushrooms, and then so we have like, we can take like 2 here. We could take 3 at a later date. We could do a few on our own if we wanted to. So we all bought 8 grams.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite a bit.
And we decided,
you didn't eat them all, did you?
Fuck it, we're just gonna take all of them.
Oh man.
So
I love how, like, because they obviously have taken them too. So they're like, oh, I know exactly where this could head.
Yeah, but again, this is all like the amount of ignorance that I had looking back on it. Because I didn't know how much was a lot.
Oh no, so that's when I took our first dose. It was a total guess.
Yeah, same.
I asked, I was like, how much should I buy? And the person's like, I don't know, 8 grams is a good amount. So I was like, cool, that must mean 1. And I told him that it's going to be me and, you know, my fiance. I guess 4 each sounds about right, but no, 1. I think 1 to 1.5 is like a decent, like a healthy dose.
Didn't know that, because we would usually hover around 3 to 5. So we were like, how bad is 8? Oh my god. So we were like, fuck it, let's do it. The first 2 to 3 hours is fine, whatever, and then it's like, you know, like when you put a bag of popcorn into a microwave and it's cooking, it's heating up, you might hear 1 or 2 pops, and it's like, bah, 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 bah,
and then all of a sudden it pops off.
That's what happened with us. It's like it hit one of us and then just hit all of us. And it hit me, and I forgot where I was. I forgot who I was. I forgot what is like. And I remember I was in my buddy's apartment, and I was like walking around like holding myself. Right, that's the only thing I knew was real. And then because I'm sure you've gotten told this, where it's like when you're on psychedelics, don't look in the mirror. So I always look in the mirror.
Interesting.
I think it's fun.
I
just it's like, whoa, there's another me in there, because I'm just dumb. You know what I mean? But this time I looked in the mirror. And I like sobered up for 20 seconds. And I was like, oh, dude, you're an idiot. You've broken your mind. They're gonna put you in an insane asylum. No more friends, no more job, no more house, no more car, no more girlfriend. You're the guy that took so many drugs that you're now
flipped,
that you're going to be in an insane asylum forever. Like, you did that. Good job, buddy. And they kicked back on, and I was like, freaking out. And then it wore off after about 6 hours, and I ended up like burrowing myself in a comforter on the floor.
Okay.
And then I came out and I was like, never again.
Yeah.
That was scary, because like it was crazy, because the medical term for it is a sense of impending doom.
Okay.
And that's what me, and by their account, all my friends felt. It was this sense of like, it's all going to end. It's all over. When's it going to happen? And it was like, it was anxiety times 1,000. I mean, yeah, you did fucking MMA. So, like, it's like that anxiety you have when you're first going to step up and you're going to get into the cage.
Yeah. You're like, I'm going to get hit.
And it's like,
it's
oh,
impending.
It's like,
yeah.
fuck, he's going to fucking hit me. He's going to fucking hit me. But, oh, fuck, he fucking hit me.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that times 1,000.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
But the thing never came.
Yeah.
So you're just always in this perpetual state of whatever. And I remember, like, looking back on that, like, on that feeling of the sense of impending doom, I was like, oh, that's like a sliver of a fraction of a 1% of what hell is like. Oh, God is real.
Oh, interesting. I would not have thought that was
Yeah,
a perspective.
because
I feel like you would have like appreciated life after. And
Oh,
like
I did.
Which I'm sure you did.
Oh, yeah.
But that's an interesting takeaway that I did not see coming. when you were
Oh,
talking about
yeah.
this,
It was like...
That's cool, though. Because you probably are very correct.
Yeah.
That, like, could you imagine being that in infinity?
Yeah.
And you're like you said, it's like probably a sliver. That's,
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Well, because the way it's described in the Bible, hell isn't described as a place with like if you watch like a lot of horror movies that are like demonic possession movies, or you watch like Hellraiser. I love that series. It's so corny, but I love that series. There's a lot of blood involved, but there's no blood in hell as it's described in the Bible. But the one consistent, like the common denominator, is that it's the absence of God, and that's what it felt like on 8 grams of mushrooms when it was really in the thick of it and it was like really trucking through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like the absence of God. And I remember coming out of that like, oh yeah. Like I've known God is real, but like God is real. That's real.
Cool takeaway.
But hell is real too.
Yeah.
And I never want that.
Yeah.
That was horrible. So then that was October. So then January rolls around, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take like 1.5 grams, start the new year off right. That is the only time I've ever had a bad trip. Like, there's one trip beforehand where it got bad for like, it got a little hairy for about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But then I came out of it and it was fine and whatever, it happens.
Yeah.
I take 1.5 grams in January, and it is right back to 8 grams. That same feeling.
Interesting.
The same exact feeling. Now, granted, there were moments of clarity.
Yeah.
And it didn't last as long. It only lasted about 4 hours. But there were moments of clarity in it where I kind of came out of it. It literally felt like I was underwater and I came up for a breath, but then just got ripped right back down. And one of my best friends, God bless him, Evan, he lives out in Vegas, Nevada, and he sat on FaceTime with me for like 4.5 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
God bless him. Because he was just playing video games the whole time.
Yeah.
But I was just in, like, he was like playing Halo and I was dying on the other end. And I remember like, it was just because, the sense of impending doom. And I remember I was like on my knees on the side of my bed and it like went away. And I was like, are we fucking done? And it just hit me again. And I was like, fuck, man. But yeah, hell's real, dude.
Yeah. Interesting. No, I love though that you've accepted where it's like, hey, no, that was a period in time. Mushrooms did what they had to do.
Yeah.
They reminded me, hey, God's real. And that's what they'll say. That's cool.
Yeah, now I just smoke a little weed, go to bed.
Yeah.
Life's good.
Yeah.
So weird transition, but real estate.
Yeah.
We live in a very weird market right now.
Very true.
A very challenging one. I mean, what was it, 3 weeks ago when the quarter ended, stocks opened up and crashed.
Yeah.
And now a lot of that was based off of the employer predictions. I don't know if I'm wording that properly.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, no, that has all facts. So like I get a daily, because I'm dual licensed, so I'm a real estate agent, and then I loan originate.
Okay.
So I get like market updates every morning. It's called MBS Highway. And I read it to a brief extent because I'm more focused on the sales side rather than the actual hardcore data. Or the data as far as like interest rates. But you are right, like job market, unemployment, that all has an effect on interest rates.
Right, because and I feel like this isn't publicized, and I'm not at all in favor of the government keeping secrets or things being kept from the public. However, one of the things that might not, I really think if people get a borderline understanding of it, it might send people into a little bit of a panic, if not just for 30 seconds till they reset and move on with their lives. But the fact that our economy is really based on bullshit. It's based on predictions.
Yep.
It's based on like predictions are bonds. Like most of 75% of the debt our country has is owed to ourselves, and it's based upon the credit, and it's based upon, I'm trying to word this properly. You can probably do a better job than I can, but it's basically like how good America is at producing. like how good we are at producing products, how good are we in trade relations, and how good we are with our own GDP. And I understand that countries have a credit rating of like going from like D to AAA, and we had a AAA rating and recently dropped down to a AA. And a lot, from what I understand, a lot of what our economy is based on right now is basically how long can America keep up the charade that we have a strong economy and that we're going in the right direction, and that the policies that are going to get made by lawmakers are going to keep this boat afloat.
Yeah.
And it feels like right now a lot of the ship's crew is running at the bottom of the ship, putting a lot of duct tape.
Yeah.
Putting a lot of duct tape, a lot of stuff. And I remember during the pandemic when there was a... because it was weird what happened during the pandemic. Not a lot of people were traveling, so gas prices tanked. They went low because our reserves of oil were huge. But because a lot of people weren't traveling and because a lot of boats weren't moving around, a lot of supply chains weren't working properly, prices of goods skyrocketed.
Yep.
Like it was something like during 2021, the price of lumber went up by 500% or some shit. So I don't even know. Where would you like to start in describing the current housing market? Let's put it that way. Because I have a lot of different places my mind goes to. Where would you like to start with this?
Well, so before I kind of hop into that, you know, you talk about like the ship and the duct tape and like this kind of, because I do think that something's going to happen. It's going to crack. Like something's going to happen. Something's got to give. Because you are right. It's a charade where I just feel like, you know, that we still, like feds are going to cut rates. They released that they're going to try to cut rates in November. Yet inflation still feels like it hasn't been dealt with. So like, how are you going to?
Well, they said they were going to cut the rates in November, which what else happens in November?
No, it's you know what I mean.
But
it's like how like evident that is.
But at the same time, they just got done raising the rates for the last 4 quarters.
Yeah.
So it's like that's not really going to. We're still in a your own microcosm of a standard. We're still in debt to yourself.
Yes.
You are in debt to yourself.
Yeah.
You are not undoing the damage you have done in the last year.
I know. And then because an election's up, we're going to damage it just a little bit more to try to inflate the economy so that people vote and feel like the economy does better. You know, we're going to cut rates.
But I think what you were about to say, I think it's to the point now where cutting rates is not enough. Well, it's too little too soon.
Yeah,
A,
yeah, I agree.
And B, inflation has gotten out of control so bad that cutting rates isn't going to do it.
No, well, I mean, it'll just worsen it a little bit. And like you said, I think it's a little, too late. But no, I do feel like, like I said, something's going to give. And it's interesting because at some points it's like, okay, that's a little scary. But then at other points, when you think about the 2008 crash, think about how many millionaires were made during that time.
Yeah.
So if something does crash, there's going to be opportunity. Something's going to open up in the market that will have opportunity. And that's been a huge part of, at least in my opinion, running with my career in the real estate side. Because when you talk about COVID, well, another big part of COVID, and I do think it affects our housing market today.
Bring that mic a little closer.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
You're good.
So during COVID, you had a spike. So I was in the car industry for about 6 years. And then during the Chicago Pro, that show that had all the seats, I came back and tested positive for COVID. It was a headache for like 2 days.
Yeah.
But I worked for the Garcia Automotive Group, and I was the sales manager at their Subaru Cadillac location. And so they're like, you can't come back in until you test positive or test negative. And I was like, so I had to ask the doctor, and they're like, well, you're not going to test
for 90 days.
Yeah, it's going to be forever before it gets out of your body. Told the group that they didn't care. So it took me about 30 days to get a negative test and actually go back to work. But they're like, and I don't know if you know anything about the car industry, but it's like super cutthroat.
Yeah.
It's a horrible industry.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the term, if you want to disparage somebody's conversational skills, you call them a used car salesman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean?
There's a whole lot of stipulations. And it's terrible because I think it's like the 3 most untrustworthy people are car salesmen, real estate agents, and lawyers. I've been 2 of them.
I'd throw a politician in there too.
Oh yeah, you could probably throw a politician in there too. But I've been 2 of them. I'm like, oh gosh. But going back to like during that time, so I went to the Chicago Pro, got COVID, and unfortunately, I didn't go back for 30 days. They're like, you cost the dealership X amount of money. They canceled everyone else's vacation because they couldn't risk losing a manager. So I had like managers calling me like, thanks for getting my vacation canceled.
Wait, back up. Okay. So you go to your bodybuilding show.
Yep.
You come back with COVID.
Yeah.
They tell you can't come back to work.
Yeah.
And then they say,
You cost us all
Hey,
this money.
you cost all this money.
Yeah. That's the car industry in a nutshell. And so, so I was having people call me and I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. And the guy that recruited me, who had worked for that group for almost 20 years, had just jumped over into real estate. And he's like, he's like, the best decision I ever made. I wish that I made it when I was your age. I was like, cool, that's all I need to hear. So during COVID, we were still open as a car dealership. It was me, the GM, and I think we had 3 salespeople, and we're selling cars over the phone. And delivering it to people's houses, because I mean that's because we were a necessary aspect of
Door dashing Cadillacs.
We were really though, that's what we were doing, and we were having to do it over the phone. So I definitely sharpened my sales skill during that time, but we had a lot of downtime, so I got my real estate license in that period, quit right after, and then hopped into real estate. But during that time, during COVID, the real estate market was wild.
Can I ask you something real quick about the car salesman job during COVID?
Yeah.
What was your major market? Who was buying cars during COVID?
So I worked mostly on the Subaru side, and Subaru's demographic is older people, like older. I don't want to be like too specific, but like older white people. That's right.
Well,
with
no,
cash heavy.
Well, I mean, Subaru is like synonymous with Colorado.
Yeah.
So,
but like there's a
do?
certain type of people that drive Subaru, and they're very cash heavy. So we were still having people buying cars because they weren't super. What was going on in the economy and stuff, they weren't like super affected because they were
right. They already had money.
They've retired. They already had money. They're turning in their Subaru that they've had for 15 years because it's time for the next 15 years.
And they're probably doing it because I'd imagine interest rates dropped.
Yeah. Oh no, it was
during
super cheap. Yeah,
during COVID. So I was like, you can get
0%, 0.9%
right
financing. So it made sense if you wanted to finance.
Right.
But a lot of people were still paying cash at Subaru.
And they also had the trade-in advantage too. So they traded that in, pumped in another 10 grand that they already had sitting. Now they have a new vehicle.
Yeah.
That's what I figured the answer was going to be. But I was very curious about that. So anyway, you hop over to real estate.
So I hop over to real estate. And the real estate market during COVID was crazy. People were overpaying for houses because interest rates were so low.
And what year is this?
2020.
It is 2020.
Yeah,
okay.
2020. End of 2020. I think going into 2021 because I'm going into my 4th year of real estate. And so hopped in, but I hopped in, and I think like 2 months in, I have a screenshot of it on my phone. I think I had like $53 in my account. I was like, I don't know if I think I made a mistake. I drained through my savings. Because basically I hopped over and I wasn't producing on the real estate side. And then I got this cold call from 2 dudes out in Florida that had cracked this system with Home Partners of America, which is owned by BlackRock. So this is where I'm going to loop that into
our good friends at BlackRock,
Yep.
State Street, and Vanguard.
So they have this company called Home Partners of America.
The reason my interest rates are so high.
No, BlackRock's that's a whole
The
nother,
reason I drink.
yeah.
I fucking hate. Anyway, continue. I hate them so much.
Well, I unfortunately made them quite a bit of money, but I made myself a lot of money too. So I took advantage of
Hey, no.
niche.
You respect the player, not the game.
Yeah. So they had called me and they're like, "Hey, we cracked this system. There's this company, Home Partners America, that will look only 2 months back on income, and if they qualify your renter can essentially go into a house that they pick that's on the market. Home Partners will buy it cash. You can rent it out and you can buy it over the next 5 years from Home Partners as a renter, and they'll help you try."
This sounds an awful like the setup to the 2008 housing market crash. A little bit.
Oh, well, yeah, kind of where anyone got approved.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Home Partners America owns the properties.
Right.
So like they
win either way.
If the renter defaults, whatever, they still own the property. And they just fill another renter.
Interesting.
And so so these 2 guys were like, yeah, what we're doing is you can't do it anymore, so no one can steal my secret. But we were posting houses on Zillow that were for sale for rent on Zillow. So then we were getting renters to click on these houses. We could still go show the property because I'm a licensed real estate agent. And I'd say, hey, go apply to Home Partners of America. They'll approve you within like a week. They'll buy this house cash and you can rent it from them. And the cool part is if you ever want to buy it, you can buy it during the 5 years you rent it. And you only have to sign a 1-year lease, and it's only 2-month deposit. And I think you had to have a 580 credit score above. So like the qualifications were like super easy.
So, okay, the idea is you're going to have, so the person has a home to live in, which is eventually the goal. Mm-hmm. But not only do they have that, they're not committing to purchasing a home, so they're not in a shit ton of debt. They're just paying off rent.
Yeah.
And potentially, if they want to buy the house in 5 years, or within the 5-year stipulation, they could, and all that money, not all the money, obviously, but at least a portion of the money that they're paying off rent is going to go towards paying off that house.
I think the rent actually doesn't go towards it.
So what was paying off the house?
I think your deposit could. No, so Home Partners bought it cash.
Oh, right, bought it cash. Okay.
BlackRock.
Okay, right.
And so they bought it cash, and so they already own the property. So all the rent was just profit for them. And then they had the prices set. So year one, the house was purchased at $300,000. Year one, you could buy it for $315. Year three, you could buy it for $330. Year 4 or 3, you could buy it for $345.
And it's an incentive to buy it early on.
Exactly.
So that they get an immediate return on their money. Okay.
Yep. And that's the whole thing. But what we had realized is that we could, post these houses on Zillow for rent, even though they were for sale, and all we were doing was just using the address of the next door house to post it, because then that house usually wasn't registered on Zillow. And we were getting a flood of 30, 40 renters, putting them through Home Partners, and then I was cranking. Home Partners would offer $15,000 over list price. They were buying houses left and right. So I got started in April with real estate. I think June is when I started doing Home Partners, and I did 38 transactions before December.
You're the devil.
It was. I mean, I did. Yeah, I think at one point I had 17 transactions in 1 month. I sold 17 houses in 1 month. And so then the brokerage that I was working with was like, "Hey man, like, what are you doing? Like, you just stepped into real estate, and you're our highest producer.
Right?
Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm doing this." But I had to non-compete with the guys in Florida, and so he's like, my brokerage owner is like, "Okay, cool. Well, like, can you just help us build the system? And like, we'll give you a portion under the table for it." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Like, I'll show you guys how to do this." So I built a team of like 4 real estate agents. We had like 3 admins, and we were just running this machine. And so we became the #1 team for Home Partners of America in the nation, Albuquerque, New Mexico. We sold like 180 houses to them in the like a span of a couple months.
So, because what's crazy is, and I experienced it a little, because I was going to buy at home at one point, but I ended up getting outpriced, whatever.
Outbid.
Yeah. So, but that does, because I want to break this down one more time.
Yeah.
So you have, let's say it's me.
Yeah.
I'm coming in to buy a house, and I see a house that's listed for sale. I go in to purchase it, and then what do you do? So I approach you. I'm like, "Hey man, I would like this house, whatever." You take that listing and you sell it to Home Partners of America?
So if you want to buy the house, I'll sell it to you, normal real estate transaction. What we were doing is we're advertising to renters, because what we knew is that the renter, it's super easy to get approved in Home Partners of America. Not only that, you're letting a renter have an opportunity to home ownership eventually. Because, Home Partners of America.
So you're advertising it only to renters.
Yeah, that's
right. Because
which is a whole another pool that no one else was advertising.
So where was the transaction happening between you and Home Partners of America?
Oh, so when I get the renter there, Home Partners of America goes, "Okay, here, can you go show this house? It's on the sale for market," and then I'd represent Home Partners in the transaction. So then I would call the listing agent and I'd be like, "Hey, I got a cash offer. It's $15,000 over, price." They close every time. It's a big company. It's a corporation that has cash, and we can close it, I think, in like 14 days.
And do the renters know that that's happening?
Yeah. So the renters know that Home Partners is buying the property, and then all they have to do is sign a 1-year lease, 2-month deposit.
Okay.
And then they can buy the property at any point.
So that's actually a good example. I talk a lot of shit about BlackRock because I love to. However, that's actually a really good example of it kind of working in their favor.
It didn't. It ended up turning. This is why they don't buy anymore.
Oh, am I speaking too soon in this story?
So no, I mean, I think
did another podcaster jump the gun? Crazy.
You do like looking at it on paper, like, "Oh, this is a really cool concept. It's giving Americans a chance at home ownership that probably wouldn't have that chance beforehand."
Right.
But what turned out is, because those qualifications were so loose, they were getting horrible renters.
Yeah.
Horrible renters.
Yeah.
And they were having to kick people out. So then they had a lot of outstanding inventory that they weren't sure what to do. And then you had these scams going on, and they're still going on, where people because you could self-tour these properties on their website. People would go in, make a copy of the key, post it for rent themselves, show the property with their key, collect a rent deposit, and then disappear.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
So, there's just a whole lot of stuff going on with Home Partners. And then they had a management company called Homelight, and they were horrible to work with. horrible property management company, just non-responsive, never had good vendors. Anyone that they sent out to, fix the property. I had one guy, they were supposed to paint the property before he moved in. There was paint poured in the bathtub. It was just like, what? How are you a professional painter and that's what you left the house as? So we had to get professional. Luckily, I got it fixed out with Home Partners because the nice thing is that because I did so much production with Home Partners, they're like, oh no, we got you. You guys made us a lot of money, so we're gonna make sure that we take care of your stuff. So I did that was a good thing, is that my clients did get taken care of eventually, but it was that's why they stopped buying. And then I think too, when the market, where the market is now, and the houses aren't as high elite price as they are. There's a lot of stuck inventory that they're holding on to that they're not sure what they're going to do with. But again, they'll probably sell in 3-4 years and it will appreciate. So they'll make their money eventually.
Interesting. Well, because, and this is going to sound very cold, but anything that happens where it's on the renter's side of things, that's the renter's fault.
Yeah.
Let's just be completely honest. Anyone who goes to rent a home or buy a home, where you do the math, and unfortunately, this is a lot of people just trying to get by, but you do the math, and it's like, okay, I can make this rent, but it's going to be within, $50 to $150 of my monthly budget. You're cutting it close, so that if
70% of their income for the rent.
Exactly, and if shit happens, you're going to be up a creek. Yeah. It happens, whatever. And now there's and I'm sure you saw this working in real estate, there's this, especially since it started, I really think, during the lockdowns, and it was accepted, where there's this culture of I don't have the money, fuck you, I'll pay you when I want to pay.
Oh yeah. As
far as rent goes,
our debt,
yeah,
personal debt levels are because I now do loan origination, I see loan applications. I've probably processed in the time that I've been licensed 250 applications. So I've seen financial situations of 250 people, and the amount of debt and credit card debt that is out there is insane.
Oh, I have a fuck ton.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a shit ton. Oh,
well, but it's crazy too, because like I said, the income level, you have people that are spending 70% of their income on bills, and it's how do you even buy groceries?
Yeah.
And then grocery prices are up because of inflation. So that's where something's going to give, and it's super unfortunate that a lot of people are going to struggle really hard before it does.
Yeah. And that's and there's cutting back, and you can only cut back so much. And I come from a place of it's just I have a girlfriend, but I just take care of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Me and my roommate have this place, but I don't have a wife, I don't have kids, I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
But for people, you can only cut back so much. So I can almost understand where they're coming from. I can't pay this month, sorry. But then on the other hand, it's well, there are two hands to this transaction, and if one of them starts to go away, there's consequences to that. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something's gonna pop. I don't know where it's gonna be. And I don't know, because people were expecting the housing market to crash in 22.
Yeah.
And it never happened. It just kept getting worse. And I don't really know. And that's what and I think that's where Trump kind of has an advantage. Let's say he gets elected. One place he has an advantage is that he doesn't need to worry about re-election. Because everyone's banking on Trump having a great economy. I think if Trump gets in there and really starts to work at the economy, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
And one of the places it gets worse is the housing market crash. Mm-hmm. And what's going to happen is a lot like with Obama, housing market's going to crash under Trump. They're going to blame it on Trump without looking at the context that looked at it. It's a lot more blatant these days, the context, but people are.
Yeah.
They're very they treat politics as a religion. And they're going, oh, well, Trump is the one that crashed the housing market, and he's the reason that it's okay, yes, but
what about the last 4 years leading up to that?
Yeah, 4 years leading up to it. And then, not for nothing, the beginning of COVID that started under Trump anyway wasn't exactly handled the best either.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't, and as far as I understand too, a lot of you mentioned, groceries are going up. The price of lumber went up as well. A lot of what drives the prices of these products rising isn't even the production of the products, it's the transport of the products. It's the fuel that it takes to literally just take these and get them from point A to point B.
Yeah.
I know this is all speculation.
Yeah.
But in your experience, or due to your experience rather, where do you think all this goes with the housing market right now?
I don't know. So that's the because a lot of people are they talk about another crash, but when you look at the data, this is also the most equity we've ever seen in housing. So
Meaning
there's
what?
more. So like, if you buy a house for $200,000 5 years ago and it's worth 340, you have $140,000
Right.
in equity.
Yeah.
This is the most equity we've ever seen in households. So what you're going to see is you're going to see a huge refi boom, and a lot of cash out refis and HELOCs.
So
Once
okay,
interest
so
rates drop again.
explain all the Latin you just spoke.
So refinance is where basically, so say you bought your house for 200,000, it's worth 340. You can now refinance a new 30-year fixed loan for 340,000 and take the cash out, the equity, and put it in your bank account. Now you're going to pay back for that equity.
I was
but
going
now
to
you
say
have-
it can't be that
No,
easy.
but you're going to pay that 140 back. But you now have $140,000 cash that you can either debt consolidate, So like what I did is I pulled a HELOC on my first property to buy my second property and fund the remodel to it. So you can utilize cash to your benefit using a refi. But a lot of people are going to have to refinance because of credit card debt. So
I was going to say, so a lot of people end up
it's a lot of debt consolidation.
because when you say refinancing a home, especially during like 2008 and beforehand, it was a negative connotation. It's like we have to take out another mortgage on the house so that we can do this and get all that cash and reconsolidate debt. But if you're positioned properly, you do stuff like that. Where
you could. I mean, there's ways to invest, but unfortunately, what most people are going to do is they're going to have to debt consolidate. So they're going to, they're just trading one interest rate for another interest rate. They're trading a higher interest rate for a lower interest rate, basically. So you're going to see a big boom of that because of the debt that people have right now. And then a HELOC, basically, what that is that if I owe $200,000, my house is worth $340,000, I just pull an extra line of credit on that $140,000. And usually that's usually a higher interest rate, but the payments are lower because you're only financing $140,000 rather than the full $340,000 again.
Why are you not finance? Is that after the house is already paid off? Wait,
you can do it after paid off, or you can just use it on the equity. So like if you have $140,000 equity, I could pull $60,000 out on a home equity line of credit, which is a HELOC. So then I can use that cash to go pay debt off or whatever.
Maybe here's just where I'm kind of getting lost. So you're basing that. So you have $200,000 home when you bought it. Now it's $340,000. You have that $140,000 gap.
Yeah.
Right. But that $340,000 price point hasn't been paid by anybody. That's just based on what the market dictates, which is only based upon what people were willing to buy it for. Correct. So that when the housing market crashes.
Well, so
you don't have that option anymore, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if say you that's where people get stuck. Say you did a refinance, you refinance at 340, house crashes, your property's now worth 280.
Right.
I mean, if you can't make those payments, it's not like you can refi out of it. Like you're stuck, and that's where a lot of people get buried.
And why wouldn't you be able to make those payments? Because the market crashed.
Well, no. So say at 200,000, your payments, $1,700. Ideally, what you want to try to do is so with the house that I bought. I think my interest rate's 7.8 because I bought it in October, but I have the idea to refinance. So if my payments are $2,400, what I'm planning for it to do is bought it at 285. It should be worth $360 when I refi. I'm going to use the cash out refi. I'll sign an interest rate hopefully closer to 4 to 5. So my payment right now is say $2,500. I'm going to be able to refinance the 360, but at a lower interest rate. I may even be able to drop my payment to 1,900 because interest rate dictates your payment a whole lot. One point in interest rate. Hundreds of dollars per month.
Right.
And so that's the ideal situation where you can actually drop your mortgage payment, finance more, and still pull cash out of the property. That's the ideal situation.
I guess where I'm getting hung up on is in that first example you used from 200 to 340.
Yeah.
That 340 isn't real.
Yeah, it's a fictitious number. Yeah, it's based on the market.
It's like, you ever play Mario where he's jumping between the platforms, but if you stay on the one platform for too long, it falls.
Oh, it disappears. Yeah.
That's what 340 is registering in my brain right now.
Gotcha.
It's like that's not a real thing to stand on.
But you have to remember, since 2008, generally property appreciates. It's generally a pretty safe investment.
Okay.
So from a bank perspective, if this person's been paying their mortgage for 15 years and they're going to refinance, they're probably going to make their payments. So from a bank perspective, if the property is worth $340 during the market, most likely this person's going to make their payments. Yeah, I'm going to loan you more money. I'm going to loan you another $140,000, and not only that, I got your property under another 30-year fixed term. So I mean, it's
our financial system is the biggest.
Yes, yeah, I know.
It's hooey.
Yeah, it's crazy what it's built on, and it's tough too because I mean, there's pros and cons to it.
Well, and I get it. I just love talking shit, but I understand it. I understand the necessity of it because if you have a economy that is based strictly on hands-on, not even cash, because we all know that cash is pretty much worthless these days.
Yeah.
Because before basically 2020, it was always the conspiracy theory. People was like, cash isn't worth anything. We have no gold. The banks are gonna fall.
Yeah.
But then after 2020, all the money we're sending to Ukraine, then all the money is starting to send to Israel now. It's like, oh, yeah, the word billion does not mean a whole lot anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? Even the word million lost its meaning a long time ago, but billion is now depreciating in just the definition of what a billion means.
Yeah.
So, but I understand it. You know, if you're going to have an economy that's only based on like what you can put your hands on, you can't get very far. But it's like we have I'm putting this thought together in real time, so this might not come out right. We have an economy based on negotiation. Where it's like, hey, this is if you give me the assets, the thing I'm going to create is gonna have value later, and you'll get a return on that value later.
Yeah.
Is that a really dumbed down way to put it?
I kind of see what you mean. Yeah,
you see what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean that's kind of what lending is. I mean,
yeah,
it's really
exactly.
I mean, it's all liability based,
right?
And
so,
it's return on investment,
and that's why it's good to have an economy that way, because then you get things done quicker. You have access to funds quicker, access to property, access to materials quicker to build the thing or make the thing, or whether it's a house, it's a business, it's a company, whatever. You have the access to do it quicker. But if the outcome is not good enough, it falls on itself like a house of cards.
Oh yeah.
And I really think, and I'm not alone in this, I really think that the investment we've been making in a certain little country next to Russia is not going to be a good return on investment.
No.
And we're seeing that right now. Like, I bought groceries at Costco yesterday. And I remember, and I just looked at like, how the fuck did $175 only get me this?
Oh, yeah. No, the price of steak alone. That's like one thing I can picture right now, because I think I was paying El Chino like, I don't know, like 12, probably 11, 12 bucks. And now it's, I think, 17 and 19.
Yep. Well,
it's
I remember
a huge jump when you think about it.
Because I had started like seriously considering bodybuilding while I was overseas.
Okay.
So I was just eating a fuck ton of food, and you know, it was a very shitty deployment. But the place we went to was a naval installation, so the little bit of time that we would spend during the weeks on the actual installation, they had really good food.
Yeah.
And it was all you could fucking eat. Like I made like you guys brought Chick-fil-A. I made my own spicy fucking chicken sandwich over there with like buffalo sauce. And it was all like really good and well made food.
Yeah.
And then so I come back, I have to take some time, and I spend some time at Fort Bliss. During the summer, I come back, and then I'm like, okay, I get my place. I'm like, all right, I really want to like do this bodybuilding thing. Egg whites it is.
Yeah.
And I remember at Costco, the 6-pack of egg whites costed $4.99, and it stayed at $4.99 until about end of 21 going into 22, and that's when it went up to like 6
7
and it stayed at $8.99 until about 6 months ago or so. It was the beginning of this year, and now it's like $12.99 for a 6-pack of fucking egg whites at Costco. It has literally doubled right in front of my eyes. This is how people get radicalized, okay? This is when we start scaling walls to the Capitol, because you jacked up my egg whites, all right? You jacked up my egg whites, you jacked up my Miller Lite, and now someone has to, tar and feather.
Yeah.
Like
well, not only that, that all happened and income didn't follow.
Yes. Well, income in a lot of places dropped.
Yeah. And so that's even like where you're like, not only did you realize we're like, wait a second, this was $4.99 when I first started buying it. You're also like, wait, my time isn't even worth as much as it used to be on the dollar.
Yeah,
that's where you're like, okay, it's broken. Let's go.
When you break down what your time is worth, if you really sit down and have that conversation with yourself, if the average American does that, you get so sad so fast.
Yeah.
This is what I'm valued? Okay, sounds good.
But, I mean, it may not be also a bad thing to realize, because then you can also, that self-worth where you go, actually, I could be meant for way more.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I completely agree. And that's one of the few benefits of the pandemic was like a lot of people were like, hey, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, we were talking about the calendar, where it's like, yeah, if you're 30 and that first chunk is already blocked off, it's like, hey, okay, wait a minute. So all of this can end. All of this, I go to work 9 to 5. I do this. We go to the movies. We go to Applebee's or whatever. All of this can end. Okay, well, I need to readjust and figure out, what do I actually enjoy?
Yeah.
What's my real passion? Whether you're 21 or 71, like, what's my passion? What do I love doing? And the unfortunate reality for a lot of people is like, do I love the person I'm married to?
Oh yeah.
Do I love the person I'm even living with? 'Cause a lot of people, you know, live together as spouses or before they're married.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, do I love the person that I'm living with? Do I love my family? Do I need to fix my family? Like, what the? I can ditch the wife, but I can't ditch the kids.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do we need to fix the unit, like the family unit? Do I need to invest more time into this, into what I love? My job they can clearly cut me off, or they can get cut off by the government.
Yeah.
So how do I readjust and make my quality of life better as much as humanly possible? That's what a lot of people did. I mean, that's what I fucking did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting to look at, like, that was just such a weird social experiment.
Oh,
and like
changed.
Yeah, like the readjusting
society.
of your life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so the positive of that is like, yeah, you know what, you can do better, and what steps you need to take to get there. But yeah, it's going back to the issue of like food going up and the wages not going up. I mean, I look at the money that I make now, and again, I'm very thankful. I'm very happy to be making the money that I do. But quite frankly, pre-pandemic, I would have killed to make the kind of money that I'm making right now. I'm not making a lot, but I do okay.
Yeah, comfortable. You're comfortable.
Yeah. That definition fluctuates.
Yeah,
but you know,
I
go to bed at night in a bed.
Yeah.
In a bed that I enjoy. I live in a house that I enjoy. I do things that I
There's
love.
food on the table.
I have this type of equipment.
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean? And there, like I said, I'm in a lot of debt, but you know, I'm making my payments on my debt. I'm not going under, and there's a lot of food in the fridge.
Yeah.
I'm doing pretty well for myself.
Yeah.
But I would have killed a small village for the money that I'm making right now in like 2019.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it would have been a dream. And now it's like, I look at my income rising over the last 5 to 6 years, but the stress is still there.
Yeah.
Because getting outpaced by inflation is a real bitch.
No, yeah, it's a real thing.
So what are you looking at on a day-to-day basis? Because you said you get like the stock reports and all that kind of stuff. Like, what kind? Maybe not day-to-day. Let's say like on a quarterly basis, right? What are you looking at that's indicators of like, okay, this may or may not collapse soon, or like this is a good healthy market to be selling in? Like,
So
and then how does that? Excuse me. How does that translate to loan improvement or approval?
So on the loan side, so I guess my real estate journey so far, I don't really sell houses anymore. I'm not in production. I'm the director of sales for the K2 Omni Group.
Okay.
And then on the loan side, I plan to step out of production in the next 5 to 6 months.
Okay.
So I already have I have another LO, another loan originator, have an assistant, and then I'm probably bringing on another 2 LOs so that I don't have to do production. So when I look at I do look at the market. I have to know the market because I coach the agents a part of the brokerage. I have to coach the loan originators. So I have to have a feel for the market, but I don't really, what I'm looking at, and this is kind of, I even bring it into like politics, and Ed Milet, I was listening to a podcast by Ed Milet a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about the presidents, and he's like, honestly, in the 30 years that I've been in business, whoever the president is doesn't affect me. Like, in all reality, like, my business still was successful. Can I, complain about it and talk about it? Sure, but I'm not going to, put a whole lot of energy to it. So when I look at my, like right now, what I'm looking at is I don't know when it's going to collapse. I know something's coming, but I do know that I need to try to buy as much property as possible in the next 5 years, especially when I saw what BlackRock was doing. Because I think I don't want to be quoted, but I think 50 to 60% of the housing market's owned by corporate America now.
It's more than that.
Yeah,
it's
that's like a huge red flag to me.
What's hilarious to me? So I started to cut you off, but so when I was looking at houses to buy a couple years or during the pandemic and all that stuff, I looked at a condo. I was like, I might do this, might not. Very happy I didn't in hindsight. Well, actually, no. Right now, I wish I did, but a couple years ago, I was like, I don't really have the money to do it. But now that I do have the money, whatever. Point is, I didn't do it. And it was one of those things where it's like I could have made the payments because I have a VA loan, so I don't have to do any of the money down. It's just a little higher interest rate and then higher payments. But I was like, I could have made the payment, but it is what it is. Move on. I'm looking at places to rent with my current roommate, me and my buddy.
Yeah.
And hey, that's a nice condo. I'm gonna go check that out. I get the key from the rental company. I walk into the condo. I'm like, I've been here before.
It was the one you were going to buy?
Son of a bitch. This is the one I was going to buy, but I got outbid. I look at the rental company. I do a little internet Googling, and who are they owned by? BlackRock.
Oh,
and I'm like, son of a bitch. So, and I think the current statistic right now is about 72-ish.
So that's...
68, 72% of homes are owned by the big three. Yeah.
So that's why, like, when I look at that, like that particular data set, you know, when it's like, oh, when is a good crash? I don't know. But I do know that corporate America is buying housing, and it's going to be super hard for you as an American to buy property in the next couple of years. So I'm going to acquire as much of it as possible, because also what I do know that is and this is what I think would happen, maybe conspiracy, but I do think eventually the government's going to go, okay, our people can no longer own homes because corporate America owns it. Who's going to get bailed out? Corporate. I think that you're going to have the government buy large amounts of housing on debt, probably, from the corporations. So they're going to get bought out so that they can create affordable homes, like programs for people to be able to get into housing. I think that's what I think may happen. So when you go like, what am I looking at on a daily basis? What I'm looking at is how do I acquire as much property as possible in this next 5 years? And that's what I'm focused on, is how do I build systems on my real estate side and on my loan side that will fuel capital in order to try to invest in as much property as possible.
It does not. So I understand the logic.
Yeah.
And that both the things you just said, because first of all, that sounds exactly like a government solution.
Yep.
Go into more debt to make it
somehow
to make it look like we're going to balance the economy, but it's not going to work in the end due to the debt.
Yeah.
Because like I was talking about a little bit earlier with like there's no compromises, there's trade-offs. It sounds like with something like that where it's like, well, okay, yeah, your rent's going to go down maybe a bit, right? And you may be able to go buy a home and it might work out for you. But let's just say like, okay, you spend a certain amount of money on rent every month or on your mortgage. Let's say that goes down $200, $250. Well, now other aspects of your life like food and gas, those are going to go up $200 to $300. So it's like you're just displacing.
Yeah. Well, and what scares me is that if that did happen, how I imagine it happening is you have the government who has no idea how to buy property. You know, who probably, you know, they may hire specialists versus corporate that literally built their business on capitalism and sales and data. And you're going to negotiate. Who's going to win? Corporate America is going to get bought out. If the property's worth $350, government's going to pay $370, and then they're going to try to go resell it back to the public, I think, and the public's going to be like, the property's worth $350. Government takes a loss.
Yeah,
you know, that's what I think is going to. That's what I could see happening.
If that is the scenario that happens, they are going to lose. Yeah, the government is going to lose on that one. Money. Yeah. And because the corporate America side of it, they hold the chips.
Yeah,
the ball is in their court because they can also just be like, no.
Yeah. Really,
they could also just be like, no, you're going to lowball me, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe I like having, because that's, I think, it really isn't talking about a tinfoil hat. I really, whenever I sit down, I get a little too high. And I think about that, what the government really wants. Like, it's not money, it's power.
Oh, yeah, it's control.
It's all power and control.
Yeah.
And people love that. So when you look at the corporate America businesses, they're like, yeah, you know what? I like the government groveling on their knees, begging to buy my product. You know what? Grovel and salivate a little bit more. I'm going to hold on to what I have.
Yeah.
That's also because I see that scenario happening. You're very right.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens.
You're very right.
This next 6 months is going to be, it's going to dictate a lot, in my opinion.
No, it will. And I think we're past the point because everyone's like, oh, government regulation, they can do this thing. That. Well, you can't. That's the beauty. It was the beauty of America. Now it's kind of turning on its head.
Yeah.
The beauty of America is you cannot regulate my property.
Yeah.
You cannot regulate what I do with something I fully own without debt to other people. Like, the government cannot come in here, obviously a very small version of this, but like Mayor Keller, he cannot come in here and tell me what I can or cannot do with this platform. Yep. He cannot tell me what to do with this. He cannot tell me who to put in front of that microphone and literally do with this piece of property. He can't tell me what to do with it. Extrapolate that. If these companies already fully own these properties, it's in their backyard. What are you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to think about.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Then it's also at some points it's like, oh, it's scary. But then again, in my mind, how I look at it is I go, okay, and I don't know. It's almost like the home partners when you're like, you're the devil. But like I'm like, there's going to be opportunity. So that means that either and then that's why I want to buy as much property as possible, because if there's a bailout. Yeah, I'll sell my property to the government if they're going to overpay 120%.
Yeah,
or whatever the case. I just know that there's going to be less people that own property, in the next 5 years compared to what it was 5 years prior.
Oh, for sure.
And I want to be in that bucket. I want to be in that select group that owns property.
And I wouldn't say banking, but the one worry I would have when you're saying I'm going to buy as much property as humanly possible. Because all this is, this whole conversation has been about gambles and investments and stuff like that, but the idea is that you are hoping that by owning all the property, that something akin to what you just described is going to happen, and not just a full-on crash like we discussed a little bit earlier.
Well, and like I said, the crash, when people
Because
think
what
about
happens
the crash,
then? Are you worried? Would you be worried about that if you're just buying property,
Not-
and then it just kind of goes
well,
under?
Not necessarily, because as long as I have renters.
That's fair.
So,
Okay,
like, as long
that's
as my
fair.
properties are cash flowing, and you do, I mean, you got to buy the property correctly. You
Right.
should try to have it cash flow. But, as long as it's cash flowing, even if there was a crash and people are losing their houses, well, what are they going to go do? They're going to go rent.
Right.
So
correct.
That's where I go, okay, as long as I'm not, as long as I'm not overstretching myself in the properties, I'm probably going to do okay, and I'll at least make it through whatever that crash is.
Right.
And so, but at the same time too, if there is a crash, that's why I'm trying to stack as much capital as possible. You're going to go buy, houses pennies on the dollar. In the housing market, when it comes down to it, everyone's going to always still need a home. And there's still a shortage of builders. That's an evident, statistic that building right now, new communities, there's a shortage of it because labor or lumber went up and all that stuff. You couldn't build a house and have a sustainable profit on it because it was so expensive to build a house.
I was going to say, so it's not for lack of workers, it's a lack of material.
Well, that's why. So you had that bottleneck during COVID, and now they're trying to catch up. And so when you think about a healthy market in Albuquerque, we're supposed to have 3,000 to 4,000 homes. We're at 1,900 still. We still haven't recovered from COVID or the production. There's not enough inventory to fill the homes. So then that makes me go, okay, so housing's a pretty safe investment because, one, there's still a shortage of homes. When it really comes down to it, there's more households than there are homes. That's why you have a lot of multi-generational, living and people living in the same roommates and stuff like that. It's because there is a shortage technically, which makes me go, that's, if there's a shortage, there's going to be a demand. And if there's a demand, there's going to be some type of appreciation.
That makes sense. Where's the 3,000 to 4,000 number coming from? Is that just based on population?
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been told.
Okay.
So before, because I got into real estate during COVID.
Right.
So I know nothing prior.
Right.
Back in the old days.
But
I
it
know
makes
a lot
sense.
of people that have, they'll talk about, they're like, no, usually a healthy market for Albuquerque was 3,000 to 4,000. But you can see the shortage other places too. But it's interesting because Albuquerque also is just a unique market Albuquerque is unique in general when it comes to New Mexico is unique in general when it comes to other states.
That's a word to use for sure.
Yeah. And so, but there is a national trend that there's still a shortage of new builds or new construction because there's too many households. So
yeah, and it's look, I'm all for local economies growing, that kind of stuff, and so Netflix, I've known about it for a while because the company that I work, the security company I work for, we have the contract for Netflix.
Oh, okay.
So we had known that the big expansion was coming, and they finally announced it, unveiled it, and all that stuff.
So I work in Mesa del Sol. I see Netflix from my window.
Oh no shit!
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, my real estate office is in there.
Oh no shit! That's funny. Yeah. So they announced that, and all of that is finally coming into play, and I don't think it's a coincidence that 3 weeks after they announced it, the highways start getting worked on. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
And there's all these articles that are coming out, and the headline is, plus or minus a few words. The headline usually reads something akin to Netflix investing money to turn Albuquerque into the new LA. And we are going to start seeing a big population boom. And I was thinking about that too, but you're right. Not the numbers wise, but I just didn't know the numbers. But, our housing can't really keep up.
Sustain that, yeah.
With what's going to come in. And I understand that they bought the city bought the what's it called? That Wells Fargo building on Lomas. And they're going to turn that into a giant apartment complex.
I didn't know that.
Did you hear about that?
No.
Yeah. So
I know what you're talking about.
I'm fairly certain the city bought it. It might have been the state. Anyway, the government bought it.
Yeah, for affordable
and they're
housing.
going to turn it into affordable housing for an apartment complex. And I like that idea.
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot. I worry. And again, this is one of those conversations that it's tough for people to have in Albuquerque or even New Mexico, how not only just how left leaning we are, but just because it's kind of an ugly thing to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Who's going to live in that building?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is because that could be a real detriment to, again, I would love it if they could fix the homeless problem and do all that.
Oh, yeah.
But then it's like, okay, are we just centralizing drug issues?
Yeah.
In that one
and, like,
building?
what's the crime going to look like?
Yeah.
Like with the safety, the rating. Who's going to property manage that building?
Yeah.
You know?
That's a
Especially if the
fucking
government's in
nightmare.
control of that, because they're probably going to go cost analysis, not quality analysis.
Oh no,
Yeah.
there is no aspect of city or state government in New Mexico that has ever been quality assessed
I
ever.
know. Yep.
Ever.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I support police officers, but like, look at APD. They have fucked themselves so hard that they're starting their officers after probation at I believe right now it's $65,000 a year, and they still can't recruit. Like, I think going through the training academy right now, you get paid $27 an hour, 28.
I know that like probation officers too, there was that ad on TV or like Hulu, and it was a signing bonus.
Yeah.
It was like 10, 15 grand.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like most people would jump at that, but they're still having problems recruiting.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's wild.
Because they know that, like, APD doesn't take care of their officers.
Yeah.
The city benefits aren't what they used to be like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it's the crime.
Yeah.
Like, they know that, like, obviously, do you need to police bad officers? Yes, obviously. But however, put any normal person in those ugly situations they're in on a regular basis, see what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's going to take an effect on you. You're going to change as a person. Your empathy is going to whittle down because it's just you're dealing with the worst of the worst.
I just don't understand the idea of defunding it.
No.
That's one of the unique issues. Law enforcement is one of the unique issues where throwing money at the problem will make it better eventually.
Yeah.
That's one of those very unique issues.
Yeah.
You throw money into war, probably not going to make it better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Throw money into anything where it's just going to inflate it and balloon it, it's probably not going to work. But if you put money into policing and you train them a lot better, you get their
quality aspect again.
You get their quality up a lot more. You can now afford to literally cut off the cancer that are the bad cops.
Yeah.
Train up the good ones, hire new ones, and you advertise yourself better. Like, hey, yeah.
Well, and then eventually you probably could, because you're going to have to, originally you're going to have to spend quite a bit of money to get that quality. But then when you create that culture, you know, after 5 years of spending that money, all the cancer's gone, and you've got just good quality officers, you can kind of scale back the spending that you're doing because now you have a culture that's already sustained itself. It doesn't have to be driven by the money.
Exactly. It's very interesting to see how this city and the state is ran.
No, it's my grandma calls it the good old boy. It's that good old boy mentality.
No,
it's
it is
like no change, not open to innovate. Yeah.
Well, and what's everywhere. It's not only in our city and state government, but it's in the military here. Like whenever. So, because I went to a military school down in Roswell, and when I had left, my last 2 years there, I become good friends with one of the guys who had ran the school, one of the adults that ran the school.
Yeah.
This dude spent like 15, 16 years in the military, infantry in the army the whole time, became a lieutenant colonel, all this kind of stuff. So I came back for a homecoming with a few of my other alumni friends, and I sat down with him, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about joining the National Guard and joining the infantry.
Yeah.
And he goes, New Mexico? I'm like, yeah. He goes, close the door. I close the door, and he basically sits me down for like 30 minutes and explains, like, look, man, I've worked with 17 or 20 different states.
Gotcha.
New Mexico's the worst.
Wow.
Their National Guard is the worst. They are a good old boys. Exactly what you just said. They're not open to changing. They are the good old boys, so they keep the money at the top. He's like, I'm not discouraging you from joining the military. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed my time in the army.
Just maybe not there.
He goes, if you go into the infantry, I think you should go active duty. But if you want to go National Guard, you want to do college, I understand. Just know what you're getting yourself into. And I was like, I was 20 years old. I was 19, 20 years old. Like, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
The exact thing that he described is what happened. And when you get to a point where you're a fucking when you're like a full-bird colonel or a general, you're no longer in the military. Like, you're in the military, but you're a politician.
Yeah. Mm.
And seeing, just even from the ground up, just seeing how all these people operate and how they worked with, like, it got so bad. Like, they used to be in conjunction, like, whatever, but post-COVID, it got so bad that our commander of the National Guard just stepped down. He was like, you know what? I'm done, and literally gave the power to the governor. And was just like, hey, Grisham, it's your military now, or National Guard now.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Yeah.
What's crazy though is like how are we still operating in that state? Because like you have someone like yourself that goes through that system, and you're like, what?
Well,
And then you even have like the guy that told you like,
Yeah.
they're the worst.
Well, they're not operating. That's the problem. That's why retention and recruiting is so far down.
Well, that's, I guess it's true. It's the quality aspect.
Like it was, so the National Guard, not just New Mexico, just the organization. They spent, I want to say, $10 million, like $10 or $15 million, on a recruiting effort with The Rock and his football league, like the XFL or whatever it's called. Yeah. And it was like, there's a certain amount of money that's going to go towards ads and then get the National Guard logo on like the uniforms and all this stuff. And then there's going to be, I think it was $3 to $4 million. Yeah. About $4 million set aside just for The Rock. And he's going to make, I wish I was making this up.
Yeah.
Where he's going to put up Instagram posts on his page advertising for the National Guard, like advocating join the National Guard. And he's going to get paid $1 million per post. Take a wild guess at how many people they recruited.
I'm sure it was like not even. Did it even crack 100? Or do you know?
Minus 28.
Oh, they lost people.
They lost recruits.
Wow.
Based on all their analytics and all their like, we're rejecting to do this and we should get this and we should go here. They actively lost recruits.
Yeah. No, it's wild. But it just like, and you, again, I go back and I'm just like, how does that happen? Like, I wish I was in those rooms with those conversations.
Same.
And been like, you guys think this is a good idea?
Yeah.
That you guys collectively, it wasn't one person probably. There was a collective group that was like, we're going with this. Yep. And the budget's okay.
Yep.
And then they did it. And then, you lose 28 recruits. I won't get super political, but like even the Bud Light whole campaign.
I think that's hilarious, personally.
I'm like, how? What?
Well, think about it. So
I was having
this conversation at dinner last night with my girlfriend because we were talking about a bunch of like what's going on right now in Israel and with the Ukraine stuff. And, and I was like, and then the Trump assassination came up. And I'll tie this into the Bud Light thing.
Yeah.
So what I think is interesting about Republicans right now, like the real MAGA Republicans, like the real deep entrenched, I love Donald Trump. What's interesting about them is they are so easily angered, and it's frustrating. Because what people don't understand about that fucking... I think this is a good time. I forgot to move my TV, actually. I added this to the studio like the day after it happened.
Oh, you got the picture. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's an icon. Also, isn't that like...
Is that not one of the hardest pictures you've ever seen,
but this
ever?
is also wild because I went golfing the day after it happened.
Yeah.
And I'm on the golf course, and I was talking to... he's one of the chief, I think, editors.
I'll bring the mic up.
Oh,
yeah.
He's one of the chief editors at the Albuquerque Journal Center. And we were talking about the assassination. I was like, yeah, that's wild. He's like, yeah, do you like... I was talking to my wife, and that's historic.
Yeah.
And I was like... Yeah. And then it clicked, and I was like, "Oh, we saw a president like an attempted assassination. The last one was
Reagan, I think,
in '86.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, almost 40 years have passed.
Yeah, the guy who tried to kill Reagan for Jodie Foster or whatever. Yeah.
So and like that's when it clicked, and I was like, "Wait, we just saw it. Like this is going to be in history books."
Yeah.
And we saw it happen.
So what people need to like. And I direct this really at MAGA Republicans because they don't really understand it, I don't think, with the public conversation, the way it's going. And obviously the Democrats downplay it like crazy, but they're going to downplay fucking everything. Yeah. So they're, whatever. But they tried to kill your guy on national television. You know what I mean? Like they tried to kill your dude they wanted his brains to get blown out in 4K. Like this isn't JFK where you have like this Zapruder film that gets quality, the quality gets better and they restore it 20, 40, 50 years later. No, this is in 2024.
Yeah.
Multiple camera angles. It's also the very first Trump rally that CNN has ever live streamed onto their TV or on their station.
Spectacle. Yeah.
They wanted to blow his head off on TV. And the only reason they didn't is because he doesn't stand still.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because And I mean, like when you talk about like the actual numbers to like where the degree of his head is from death to surviving,
15 degrees.
Yeah, what?
15 degrees.
Yeah.
And I bring up the assassination because people got so angry about it. Understandably so. You should be angry. They tried to kill your dude.
Yeah.
They tried, And they tried canceling him, they tried imprisoning him, and they tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't want your guy. Okay, great. Then 2 weeks later, the outrage conversation amongst the MAGA Republicans is the Olympics. It's like, no, focus.
Oh yeah,
Focus.
The fact that no, that's also a wild aspect, and that goes back to me like being like, oh wait, that was a historic event. We moved on super quick from a huge historical event. It's like I don't even know what the investigation has come to.
So they're still they ended up bringing the director of the Secret Service in and questioning her in front of Congress, and well, first of all, before I even get to that, first of all, the fact that happened on a Saturday and Sunday morning, the nation didn't wake up to Secret Service director resigns is fucking weird.
Yeah.
And that is, that should be studied. But so they bring the Secret Service director in front of a congressional panel, and they're starting to grill her about it. And never thought I'd say this, but AOC gave her an ass kicking over it. AOC was like, because I don't like her very much. I think she's very much in that camp that enjoys socialism and wants to do all that. And then, you know what? You can have that belief, but just stop.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't like her. But she got on that panel and was like, no, wait a minute. You guys let an armed gunman within 150 yards of a presidential candidate and a former president. How did this happen?
Yeah.
And she tried dodging the question. She's like, no, how did you guys fuck da 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 da? Like, she really grilled her. But anyway, they grilled her hard, and then like a week later, she ends up resigning. My point, though, in bringing all this up is so the Olympics happen, they freak out about like the Last Supper thing, make fun of Christianity, and I agree with that. Like, you know what?
No, that didn't belong there.
Yeah, I agree. Like, if you see that and you were a Christian, you should have every right to be mad at that. It shouldn't be there. I don't like the fact that they're pushing drag queens and transgender ideology on kids in a public platform. I don't like that either. I don't like my religion getting mocked either.
Yeah.
That's very ugly. But we can get to that later, dude.
Yeah.
We can get to that later. Let's figure out why they tried to kill your guy.
Yeah.
And then started with the Dylan Mulvaney thing with the Bud Light. If you remember what happened during that, because the Bud Light thing and the Target thing happened all at the same time, right?
Target too, yeah.
So what was the response? The cultural outrage was so big that stocks tanked in Bud Light or in Anheuser-Busch, whatever the fuck it's called.
Whoever. Yeah.
And Target, their stocks tanked. So you guys can do something. You guys, if you protest enough and you don't spend your money there and you are pissed off on the internet enough, you can do something about it.
Yep.
This is when it matters.
Yeah.
They tried to kill your guy.
Yeah.
And then, like, with the Bud Light thing, what I think is hilarious about that is they had Dylan Mulvaney, that tanked, so they bring in Shane Gillis. Like, talk about a cultural shift.
Yeah, 180.
It's like you can make change if you're angry and passionate and focused enough.
Yep. Yeah.
I am the goal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very interesting watching all of that happen, and I just wish that, because if you...
Like, where was that for this?
Yeah, exactly. Because, and I think that people kind of look at it as like, and I do think it is a legitimate act of God that he didn't get killed. Because I forget what the guy's name is. Because he's a veteran guy that has a big channel on YouTube, and him and his buddies, like, they did a simulation of what it looks like for the bullet to hit first of all, how do you even pull that shot off?
Yeah.
Just to silence all the idiots that say, oh, it was staged. Like, no.
Yeah.
Because, and they do it in, like, they have this camera that shows, like, I think 1,500 frames a second.
Gotcha.
And there's still this cavity about that big that gets created when you get
from that bullet, yeah.
from the bullet hitting the ear. And they had to do it to where they had like the ballistic gel skull.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it could only shoot it from like 15 yards or 15 feet away because it's like, how are you going to hit
that?
Yeah. Like, that's impossible. I don't know. I just think it's all the political stuff coming together and then all the economy stuff coming together. It's just a big powder keg.
Yeah. No, it's wild. I can't, so my brother's over in the UK right now, and I was trying to ask him, and I guess they don't discuss it as much as I thought it would, they would. I'm like, what, do they talk about America and stuff? But I mean, I guess they have their own stuff going on over in Europe.
Yeah.
There's a bunch going on over there too. But it almost feels like a reality show. Like, it feels like, or like a scripted show where you're just like, this is happening? Like, what? And then you like, when we talk about this too, it's like a lot of this stuff is evident, and you're like, it's as clear as day, yet it's still going on. Like, how, like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't like using, like, the trending words or whatever, but we are really being gaslit in real time.
Yeah.
Like, this is what gaslighting is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you thinking your boyfriend's lying to you, that's not gas. This is gaslighting.
Yeah.
An entire governmental organization telling you everything is fine when you can't afford groceries, you can't afford gas. Like, the only reason that I'm able to afford the gas that I can for my truck is because my company pays for my gas. They give me a gas card. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, the $22 billion company I work for, they can pay for my gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
but it's like
100%.
I wouldn't be able to afford that. I would have to sell the truck and go back to a Honda.
No,
and I love my Honda, but I like my truck. So whatever.
Yeah. No, it's wild. It is wild to think about, and that's why I go back to kind of like the Ed Milet thing, where it's like, in all reality, I can't like. Does that stuff affect my day-to-day life to an extent? But in all reality, like, I shouldn't be spending too much energy on it.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I'll dive into it a little bit because it's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, you should be informed. You should be an educated person in your society, and you should know what's going on.
Well, especially with the job that you have.
Yeah. So, I mean, it does affect and like kind of know what's going on. And then not only that, like the people that I interact with are going to ask questions about that because it does affect the economy. But at the same time, you almost have to like, I almost like disassociate because I'm like, if I were to dive into this too much, like you'd want to move, you'd want to liquidate and probably move to a different country,
well,
and like unplug, because like this is gonna get real wild real quick.
The deeper you get, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
And you should like you said, everyone should be informed and understand what's going on. But if you're really going to get into the weeds of it, at least be doing it for a productive reason.
Yeah.
Like, don't just be diving into it. Like, I remember growing up as a kid, like, I was always told, you know, you shouldn't be watching a horror movie before you go to bed, and that's going to affect the way you sleep and all that, right? Give you nightmares or whatever.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be diving into American politics before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You shouldn't be just diving into it for hours and then not like, okay, I have all this knowledge and all this, you know, fact mixed with conspiracy theory. It's probably true and all this nonsense. So where do I channel all of this before I turn into Alex Jones?
Yeah, really though. Yeah.
What do I do?
Or yeah,
this?
where's the balance where I don't tip over that edge where it's like the no return? So.
Yeah. But listen, this has been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Yeah.
Do you have any I know you're like in the wind down season right now. Do you have any shows coming up? Like,
so we're gonna compete next the goal will be next November, December.
Nice.
So next year, yeah. So we're PCTing right now, and then we already put together the new plan. We know what we need to improve upon, and the specific muscle groups that we're gonna try to grow. And then we're getting married in June, July.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we're in the process of planning that. And so we'll get married. I'll go into prep. You know, I'll nationally probably qualify. I'll probably do the November show here.
Nice.
Just an easy, what I've realized is it's better to do the regional show in your own state. It's been cool traveling because I did like the Jay Cutler Classic in Boston. I went to the Chicago.
Oh, no shit.
Because I like to sit, I want to go compete against other people other than the people. I see these people in the gym all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was like, I wanted to see just like what's out there. And the Nationals was a great like indicator of where I stand. But I've realized I was like, that's also costs a lot of money. And so I'm like, it's easier just to do your local show, and I'll get the look at Nationals. I'll get the cream of the crop at Nationals.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to ask before we get out of here is, so social media speaking, how concerned are you with like building a social media brand, because there's so much to bodybuilding. I meant to ask you this like an hour ago.
There you go.
But like, there's so much to bodybuilding now, and it's the fitness industry that is, you know, your social media brand, your social media, like you as a brand, right? And then like getting deals with supplement companies and this and that and all that. Like, the fitness industry over the last 8 years has by and large moved towards like the influencer types.
Yep.
You know, like
Not even compete. A lot of don't even compete.
Exactly. They don't even compete. They just get fit for the camera. I'm sure they love working out, but like they do it for the camera. They build their brand off the camera, all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm obviously one of the pioneers of that was like Bradley Martin.
Yeah.
And he's turned into everything he's turned into.
Yeah.
This is very biased, but I'm very sad that bro science didn't really catch on in its later stages. I fucking loved Dom Mazzetti in high school.
Yeah. I totally remember.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But that's like where that landscape is turning towards. Are you like concerning yourself at all with that?
So I mean, I'll push content a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I did build the Instagram page for a little bit, but I don't know, social media. It's a love-hate. You know, where I do see the benefit. I totally see the benefit of being able to create a brand. It's the ability to be able to connect to multiple people that you wouldn't have the ability to connect. It's an information source, but there's also a whole lot of cons, in my opinion. You know, I do think the algorithms that are on those really do hinder your ability to self-growth. And unless you have put in time to your algorithm and made sure that the content that's scrolling down your feed, and even then, like when you put the time in, I feel like you don't even do anything, but if you stay on one post too long, your algorithm changes, and it's usually for a negative direction. And so I put in a little bit of time because I have my food sponsored, I have my supplements sponsored, because I do see the value of that. Am I super concerned with growing the social media side? Not really. I'll do it when I have time. My thing is like, okay, if I can make more money on the real estate side and that space, I can also outsource some of that stuff. So like this last prep, a lot of my footage was shot by not me. I did the editing still because I hadn't quite found an editor that I liked the style of, but now I found one. And so my next prep, I won't even do my video. I won't do my editing. I'm going to outsource that stuff because I just don't have the time. And not only that, I just like I said, I don't dive into social media a whole lot just because I do think there's unfortunately more cons to it than pros.
Well, it takes a team to build something, man.
Yeah.
Especially when it's, again, just broadening it out to entertainer. It takes a team.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that's one of the big things that I've learned, and even just, how I've become so successful in those areas, is you have to outsource your work. Really, trying to do everything on your own, the minute that you can try to admin something or automate it, take advantage of it, because it 100% that's the only way that you'll grow.
I mean, one big thing that took a lot of work off my plate for this podcast is I have AI edit the podcast.
Oh yeah, see,
I found a program.
And AI is just a whole nother level of what you can do now.
And I line up all my stuff, and I press 3 buttons, and it does like 2 hours of work in 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's wild.
And if you're shooting fucking 3 to 4 episodes a week or something like that,
you don't have the capacity.
It's
to edit
like
that.
Yeah. So I've winded down a little bit on how much I shoot now.
Yeah.
So it was getting a bit much, but yeah, whenever you can outsource stuff like that and build a team of preferably real people,
Yeah.
But when you can build a team and do that, that just gives you more time physically, but also more time mentally and emotionally to just focus on the one thing.
Well, and
be good at the one thing.
And goes back to kind of, we were talking earlier, paying people that are specialized in those areas.
Yeah.
Could I take the time and learn social media, but it's a constantly changing thing? Sure. Is that really going to benefit me if I'm taking away time from something that I'm trying to specialize in? No.
Right.
So can I pay someone that specializes in that area and get it outsourced? If I can, I'm absolutely going to take advantage of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it. Where can everyone find you on social media? Then who are the guys that are shout them out real quick? Who are the guys that are sponsoring you?
El Chino Meals sponsored this last prep.
Nice.
Peak Sports Nutrition sponsored this one.
Oh, nice. That's where I go to get my protein.
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, no, me and Jimmy are really good friends. And then Clarity Media does all my video footage, and then United Fit's my spot for the gym. And
cool shit.
Carlos over there is really cool too.
Cool shit, man. Then where do people find you on social media?
I'm the White Wolf, I think __ it's CO.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd probably be the best place.
Sweet. Well, dude, thank you again for doing this.
Yeah.
I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, no,
you're
this
cool
was a
shit
lot
to
of fun.
talk to.
Yeah,
It's been a lot of fun.
Really cool.
Thank you guys for coming and sitting. I don't know if she's. Oh,
Yeah.
she does?
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you guys for coming.
Cool.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.